So Andor just ended a few weeks ago, and I can't stop gushing over what an amazing show it was. It is a phenomenal achievement. And like many people online, many Star Wars fans, I absolutely love this show. It feels like one of those masterpieces that only come along every decade or so. This show belongs up there with the greats, with Breaking Bad and Avatar and early Game of Thrones kind of. And there are so many video essays about it already, and this is not going to be one of them. It elevates Star Wars in so many ways. From now on, every Star Wars project will be compared to Andor, and I don't know if they're going to meet the standard, but good luck to them. Good luck to Dave Filoni and them. But anyways, this show is amazing because it's a story about the unsung heroes, you know, the people that nobody ever thanks, nobody will, you know, stop and say thank you to. And that's what I plan on doing in this video, because this show feels like a passion project from a creative team that wanted to make something good and make it of the highest quality. And I feel like they achieved that. So obviously this was a huge project for Disney that involved a lot of people, and the show wouldn't be possible without everyone that was involved. And I feel like only the main people usually get thanks. So in the spirit of Andor being about the little guys, the people that don't get recognition for their achievements, what I'm going to be doing is thanking everyone, or attempting to thank everyone that was involved in this project on behalf of the entire Andor fandom. I almost said Star Wars fandom, but Andor fandom is more accurate, because apparently some people didn't like this show, and that's honestly so forced, in my opinion. In my opinion, this show is aimed at adults, people that don't have to see the Force and lightsabers in order to enjoy a Star Wars product. But anyways, I digress. I don't have to do this, but I'm doing it because I just want to get out of my system the excitement and love that I have for this show, and just showing them how much I appreciate this show and what an amazing achievement it is. Anyways, I'm gonna get started with it. So I hope that this has also been recording, because I would be devastated if it's not. Okay, so I got inspired to do this by this video I saw of a guy that made a video thanking everyone in the credits of Super Smash Bros or something. And honestly, I could relate to him. Not from having played the game. I've never played it, but just the idea of being so proud of something, so happy with something, that you have to thank everyone that was involved. So I get it. But anyways, I got this list from IMDb, and I think it has everyone that was involved in this project. It's got like 200 pages. It's like a 200-page document, and it's gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna hover over the names of everyone that I read, and to make this a bit more fun for myself, I'll see if I can find someone with my name on it, or I'll see if I can find names of people that I know in real life, like 5 people or so. I'll put up the list. I'll put up a little list somewhere down here, and even my own name actually, with the correct spelling, and also how many instances of the names. That's going to be a fun one. Okay, so this is the list. I'm just going to go through them. So I got this list from IMDb, and it is apparently a full comprehensive list of everyone involved in this show. So I hope I'm not going to miss anyone. All right, let's go. Okay, so starting with the directors, thank you Toby Haynes, thank you Ariel Kleiman, thank you Benjamin Karen or Saren, thank you Susanna White, thank you Giannis Metz, thank you Alonso. I should also mention that I'm gonna butcher a lot of names because I'm not, obviously native to wherever the names come from. I think he's the guy that directed 7, 8, 9, and he actually was in South Africa, so that's really cool. Okay. I'm not gonna make this too long, so Thank you, Alonso Ruz Palacios. I don't know if I got that right, but then moving on to the writers. Thank you, Tony Gilroy. Obviously, he created the show. I think one of the reasons the show was so well written is because he's not even a Star Wars fan. He came out and said that he hated Star Wars. Actually, he's not a fan of it, but when he was involved with Rogue One somehow, I don't know, like he got involved with it, and he became close friends with Kathleen Kennedy, and he heard their plans of making an Andor series where it's Andor traveling with K2, and he was so unhappy with that. He wrote out an entire email talking about why it's such a stupid idea, and apparently they told him, okay, so then why don't you make it then? And that's how we got Andor. So thank you, Tony Gilroy. Like, really incredible stuff. I don't know why his name appeared. Oh, it's because he created the show. But anyways, thank you, Tony Gilroy again. Thank you, George Lucas. Obviously, that's actually kind of yeah. Thank you, George Lucas. And actually, this might be controversial, but thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, for greenlighting this show. I was actually so nervous that the second season wasn't going to be greenlit for a second season, because the first season apparently had low numbers, but I'm glad they got to do 2 seasons, and they had a really high budget, so I'm thankful to Kathleen Kennedy as well. But anyways, back to this. Thank you, George Lucas, obviously. Thank you. Well, he's credited because Star Wars is based on him, so that makes sense. Thank you, Dan Gilroy, Tony Gilroy's brother, I believe. Thank you, Bo Williman. Thank you, Tom Bissell. Thank you, Stefan Skiff. I don't know how to pronounce that, but thank you, Stefan Skiff or Gif. And now moving on to the cast. This is the main cast, obviously. Thank you, Diego Luna. He was really good as Andor. I'm not gonna lie. I love his accent too. Like it adds so much to his character. But he was brilliant as Andor this season, especially in my opinion. And I love his character so much. He delivered a brilliant performance. Thank you, Denise Go. Dedra. Oh my god. She was brilliant. Dedra is an amazing character, and she portrayed her very well. Thank you, Denise. I really enjoyed your performance. Obviously, thank you, Stellan Skarsgård. Oh, he was so good. He was brilliant as Luthen. He's one of my top 5 TV show characters in general, like definitely in the top 5. And I found out that apparently he needed an earpiece to remember his lines because he had a stroke not too long ago that makes it difficult for him to remember some of his lines. So that's really, really sad, but I'm glad it wasn't like fatal or anything, and I'm glad he's still with us today and gave us this brilliant performance as Luthen. So thank you, Stellan Skarsgård. What an absolute legend. Thank you, Kyle Soler. Cyril was... I'm not going to spend waste too much time talking about each character, but Cyril was so close to having a redemption arc similar to Zuko, in my opinion. It was similar to Zuko in the sense that obviously he started off as a bad guy, and he was coming to the realization that, oh shit, maybe I'm on the wrong side, and then he got killed. I'm not mad about it, but I would have loved to see him. He would have been a great asset in being with the rebellion, in my opinion. But I know that not many people agree that he was on his way to having a redemption arc, but to me that's just how I felt, because it felt like Zuko season 2 in the Crossroads of Destiny episodes. Imagine if Zuko got killed when he was in the cave with Katara, like that type of thing. That's, I don't know, I'm not mad about it, but I think it made sense for him to go off like that. But yeah, Cyril, he was brilliant. So thank you, Kyle Solar. Thank you, Adria Ariona. Ariona. She was big. She was really brilliant, and she's one of my one of my celebrity crushes for sure. She's amazing. Thank you, Anton Lesser. Oh, I love to hate this man. He's so good, but he's so evil. He's like, I hated him since Game of Thrones, but I also loved hating him here because he's just such a good actor. Brilliant. Thank you, Anton. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Genevieve O'Reilly. Mon Mothma, she was an amazing character as well this season. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep it short, but I love that she was able to come back to do this, because she apparently was cast as Mon Mothma in episode 3 of the prequels, but her scene got cut, or her scenes, and it's nice that she got to come back and, like, you know, fulfill that character, fulfill her destiny as that character, I guess. But she was really amazing. Thank you, Genevieve O'Reilly. Thank you, Elizabeth Dulau. Clea is also one of my favorites, and apparently it was Elizabeth's first acting role after graduating from drama school. So that's some really impressive stuff, honestly. It's such a, having Andor as the first thing on your resume, that's like, it's huge, it's amazing. And she seems like such a fun lady. Like, I've seen interviews of her, and she's so fun, and she's hilarious as well. So thank you, Elizabeth Dulau. Thank you, Mohamed Ben Amor. Also really amazing. He's really good. He's amazing. Willman was a character that I was initially kind of annoyed with. I was like, I didn't even think he was gonna go this far into the series. I thought he was just gonna be a season 1 character, but he survived, and he's season 2, and I loved him in season 2. So thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Faye Marseille. I love her as well. She was in Game of Thrones. She's amazing. She's also in Adolescence, which is a pretty cool show. So thank you, Faye, for your work on Andor. Thank you, Jacob James Beswick. Okay, he's a attendant here. Okay. Thank you, Michael Glenn. Thank you, Dave Chapman as B2MO. I love B2. I'm gonna name something, or I need to name something after B2, and I already have something that I've named after K2, but that's a different discussion. So thank you, Dave Chapman. Thank you, Alistair Mackenzie. Thank you, Robert Ems. Thank you, Varada Setu. Thank you, Yoplin Sibtain. Joplin? It's probably Yoplin. I wonder where that name is from, but thank you, Brasso. I actually teared up when Brasso died. It was so unexpected to me, but it made sense looking back, because, well, it made sense with each arc, and it was amazing. Oh, and actually, I kind of brushed over Cinta, but she was also one of my favorites. So thank you once again, Varada Setu. Thank you, Yoplin Sibtain. Thank you, Kathleen Hunter. Thank you, Bronte Carmichael. Bronte. I'm not sure who that is. Thank you, Lee Ross. Thank you, Ella Pellegrini. Thank you, Duncan Powell. Thank you, Piero Neil May. I liked Erskine, he was a cool character. Thank you, Richard Delane. Thank you, Ben Miles. Thank you, Aidan Cook. Oh, he was Ben Miles' take home. He was a cool guy. Thank you, Aidan Cook. Thank you, Rosalind. All this noise, it's my sister's in the bathroom, but anyways. Thank you, Rosalind Holstead. Thank you, Matt Bowman Jones. Thank you, Theo Costa Marini. Thank you, Caroline Vanier. Thank you, Alex Lothar. I love Alex Lothar. He's one of my favorite actors, and I love how mysterious he is because he doesn't have social media or anything. But he's one of my favorite actors. I loved him in The End of the Fucking World. And in the show, I loved his what's it called? His manifesto. Nemec's manifesto. It ended up having such a ripple effect in this universe, and it was absolutely brilliant. So thank you, Alex Lothar. Thank you, Alais Lawson. Thank you, Abraham Warpler. Thank you, Abraham Warpler. I'll try really hard to not mispronounce some names. Please bear with me. Thank you, Noof Oselman. Oselam. Thank you, Noof Oselam. That's a really tough one. Nov, I'm not sure. Thank you, Richard Samuel. Thank you, Ben Bailey Smith. Thank you, Ewans Abid. Thank you, Alex Ferns. Thank you, Alex Scarbeck. Thank you, Joshua James. Thank you, Wolf Scolding. Thank you, Abin Galea. Oh, he was Salman Park. And he was a cool guy. His death was really sad. Thank you, Abin Galea. Thank you, Fiona Shaw. Thank you, Forrest Whitaker. He's an absolute legend. What can I say about Forrest? Saw Gerrera in Rogue One ended up making a lot more sense after seeing Saw in Andor. So it was a really good performance. Thank you, Forrest Whitaker. Thank you, Victor Perez. Thank you, Kevin Cornwall. Keeper. Thank you, Lucy Russell. Thank you, Zubin Varla. Thank you, Alistair Petrie. Thank you, Claire Brown. Thank you, Teresa Gotto. Thank you, and thank you, Ben Mendelsohn. He's also one of my favorite actors. This show is so damn good. Oh my god. Yeah, he was amazing in Rogue One, and he's such a good actor. I love him. He's kind of him and Stellan Skarsgård are absolute legends, and of course Forrest Whitaker. A lot of legends in this show, actually. Oh, and now that I see his picture, Alistair Petrie, thank you. I know him and liked him in Sex Education as well. Really brilliant actor. But thank you, Ben Mendelsohn. I loved your work in this show. Thank you, Nicholas Moss. Thank you, Raymond Annam. Thank you, Thierry Godard. This is most likely a French guy. Thierry is a French name, as far as I know. I know a lot of Thierry's part of my uncles. Is that name? So thank you, Thierry Godard. Thank you, Finley Glasgow. Thank you, Antonio Venia Casa. Thank you, Eben Moss Bachrach. Whoa, okay, this is not easy. Thank you, Eben Moss Bachrach. Bachrach, I don't know, but thank you, Eben. Thank you, Gershwin Eustace Jr. I know the name Gershwin, I know how to pronounce that one at least. But yeah, thank you, Gershwin Eustace Jr. Oh, and also this list has everyone from like season 1 and season 2. It's not just season 1 cast and crew, which is why I'm glad I got this list. So anyways, thank you, Christopher Fairbank. Thank you, Hubert Hanowitz. Hanowitz. Yeah, Hanowitz. Thank you, Benjamin Bratt. Thank you, Raphael Roger Levi. Thank you, Sule Remy. Thank you, Kingsley Amadi. Thank you, Anton Valenzi. Thank you, Kurt Edgewan. Kurt Egiao. Thank you, Kurt Edgewan. Thank you, Anushka Chakravarti. Anushka. Thank you. Thank you, Anushka. Thank you, Andy Serkis, obviously. Damn, again, this show had so many brilliant actors and so many arcs. And when I see the names, I'm reminded how amazing the story was that involved the characters. But Kino Loy is going to go down as another amazing Star Wars character that goes unknown, Yeah, thank you, Andy Serkis. Oh, and apparently he might be alive. I heard, well, this is something from Andy Serkis himself. He was like, well, we didn't see a body, so might be alive. He might be coming back. Tony didn't say he died, so it might be that, yes, Kino Loy is alive. I just hope that that's not the case and they're not going to make a series of his, but anyways, thank you, Freddie Meredith. Thank you, Brian Bovell. Thank you, James McCardle. McCardle, yeah. Thank you, Martin Ware. The voice of God. Yeah. Thank you, Neil Bell. Thank you, Clemens Schick. Thank you, Clemens. Thank you, Rasak Kukoi. Thank you, Ben Fox. Thank you, Alan Tudyk. He's a brilliant voice actor and he's involved in so many projects. But I love him as K2. K2 is one of my favorite characters. One of many people's favorite characters because he was incredible. He's funny. He's like clever. It's just amazing. And he's a badass as well. And we got to see that in this show. So yeah, thank you, Gary Beadle. Very close to my name, but not exactly spelled correctly. There's one R, which is of course the incorrect spelling. So I'm not going to count that towards the list of names that I've listed. But thank you, Gary Beadle, regardless. Thank you, Joseph Davies. Joseph. The only reason I say Joseph is because it's not a PH, Joseph. It's a F, which I think is like mostly like a European type. But anyways, thank you, Joseph Davies. Thank you, Andy Gathergood. Thank you, Tom Reed. Thank you, Fode Simbo. Fode Simbo. Thank you, Samson Cox Venel. Thank you, Samson Cox Venel. Thank you, Kieran O'Brien. Thank you, Brooke Holmwood. Thank you, Brooke Holmwood. Thank you, Pamela Nomvete. Sounds like a South African name to me. Thank you, Stefan Kreppen. Thank you, Steve Morphew. Thank you, Jos Slovic. Slovic. Thank you, Noella Peberdi. Thank you, Jack Donahue. Where does that Donahue sound from? I watched Hateful Eight recently, and I think that's the surname of the gang members or something. I don't know. But thank you, Jack Donahue. Thank you, Christopher York. Thank you, Laura Marcus. Thank you, Mensa Bedaiko. Thank you, Salman Akar. Oh, would you look at that? We got ourselves a name. This is someone that I know in real life who's not gonna watch this, but in case you do, this is for you. So yeah, thank you Salman Akhtar. Thank you Romario Simpson. Thank you Suzanne Bertish. Thank you Jonathan Coy. Thank you Jonathan Gunning. Thank you Robin Sebastian. Thank you Harry Delano. Excuse me. Thank you Jonathan Oldfield. Thank you Liam Cook. Thank you Malini Roman Middleton. Thank you Johnjo O'Neill. Jono O'Neill. Thank you Malcolm Sinclair. Thank you Louisa Mesquita Mia. I think there's a lot of these. Well, I know that this list includes extras, which is amazing. I wouldn't want to forget them, but that's why some of these names are a bit like, okay, interesting. But anyways, thank you Luzia Mesquita Mia. Thank you Robin Berry. Thank you Jonathan Rhodes. Thank you Alan Medizade. Thank you Alan Medizade. Thank you Alex Blake. Thank you Zora Bishop. Thank you Taniel Yusuf. Thank you Imogen Ross. Thank you Camilla Abdulhamidova. Yeah. I'm proud of myself for that. Thank you Camilla Midova. Thank you Camila Abdulhamidova. Thank you Rupert Van Sittart. This guy. It was cool. Thank you Oliver Boder. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you Calfion Dune. That's a really cool name though. I wonder where it's from. It's Irish or something. Anyways, thank you Calfion Dune. Apologies if I butchered your name. Thank you David Stoller. Thank you Rajavan Vasan. Thank you Andrew Brook. Thank you Margaret Cluny. Thank you Tommy May. Thank you Gloria Obiano. Thank you Lewis Martin. Thank you Kimmy Schultz. Thank you Sam Gilroy. Oh yeah, I think that's the son of Tony Gilroy, and he hired his son to be one of those like dumbass little faction that was in the first episode of season 2. Yeah, he was one of those idiots. I'm not calling him an idiot, but his father called him that on the show. So thank you Sam Gilroy. Thank you Sunny Puntip. Thank you Dan Lee. Thank you Tariq Jarrett. Thank you Nick Blood. Why did I almost read it as Blood? Thank you Nick Blood. Thank you Belle Swark. Thank you Ryan Pope. Thank you Mia Soteriou. Thank you Benjamin Norris. Thank you Chicoche. Not sure. Thank you Jordan Long. Thank you Ron Cook. Thank you Jake Lampert. Thank you Ronak Patani. Thank you David Olaniregun. Thank you Abraham Popula. Thank you Lucas Bond. Thank you Fraser Aris. Thank you, Dawn Sevrite. Sevrite? Sevrite? I don't know. Page 12. Thank you, Richard Henderson. Thank you, Adrian Rawlins. Thank you, Derek Arnold. Thank you, Jack Bandera. Thank you, Philip Hill Pearson. Thank you, Samia Khan. Thank you, Samia Khan. Thank you, Alex Austin. I realize I've forgotten to hover over some of these names, but I'll try to remember that now. Thank you, Dylan Bloor. Thank you, Josh Herdman. Thank you, Josie Walker. Thank you, Dylan Brady. Thank you, Joel Tony Buengo. Thank you, Elliot Green. Thank you, Kenny Fullwood. Thank you, Paul McEwen. Sounds familiar. Thank you, Mark Risman. Riz. Thank you, Alison Thank you, Alison Pargeta. Thank you, Aki Kotabe. Thank you, Declan Baxter. Thank you, Alex Waldman. Thank you, Matt Dunkley. Thank you, Joe Blakemore. Thank you, David Omordia. Thank you, Alex Jordan. Thank you, Leonardo Taiwo. Thank you, Ava Joyce McCarthy. Thank you, Jimmy Walker. Thank you, George Leon, or Jorge. I think that's how Americans pronounce it. George. It looks like George to me. Thank you, Rachel Diedrichs. Thank you, Tim Faraday. Thank you, Caroline Green. Thank you, Anna Rubin. Thank you, Tim Bentink. Thank you, Chanel Waddock. Thank you, Lee Boardman. Thank you, Richard Lister. Thank you, Michael Jean. Thank you, Michael Jean Marin. Thank you, Roger Ajogbe. Thank you, Stephen Wright. Thank you, Stanley Townsend. Thank you, Finley Cassidy. Thank you, Michael Mears. Thank you, David Heyman. Thank you, Pui Fan Lee. Thank you, Ashek Akhtar. Thank you, Letitia Wilson. Thank you, Alexander Owen. Thank you, Elliot Rennie. Thank you, Richard Katz. Thank you, John Walk. This guy looks familiar though. I don't know who he reminds me of. Or what project, what other series or movie he's been in. But anyways. Thank you, Matthew Lyons. Thank you, Ezra England. Thank you, Jacob Avery. Thank you, Harrison Anton. Thank you, April V. Woods. That's a nice name. Thank you, Michelle Duncan. Thank you, Luke Nunn. Thank you, Bailey Patrick. Thank you, Howard Ward. Thank you, Alfie Todd. Thank you, Joel Morris. Thank you, Pandora Collin. Ooh, nice name. Thank you, Anna Allura. Thank you, Kirsty Malpass. Thank you, Luke Baker. Thank you, Akshay Khanna. Thank you, Eric McLennan. Thank you, Karishma Navakar. Thank you, Chris Ryman. Thank you, Juliette Cohen. Thank you, James Henry Thomas. Thank you, Beru Tessema. Thank you, Luke McGregor. Thank you, James Northcote. Thank you, Barney Joe Jonas. Barney Joe Jonas. Thank you, Applebrook. Apple's a nice name. Oh, okay. Never mind. It was Cyril's mother. Thank you, Billy Dunmore. Thank you, Sharon Duncan Brewster. Thank you, Jem Wall. Thank you, Imani Yashua. Imani is a nice name. It means faith in Swahili. Thank you, Elliot Baxter. Thank you, Jonathan Harris. Thank you, Liam Jevons. Thank you, Caitlin Nicholas. Thank you, Rob Compton. Thank you, Michael James. Thank you, Nicholas A. Newman. Thank you, Andre Tamakloe. Thank you, Daniel Adosan. Thank you, Gemma Knight-Jones. Thank you, Robbie Keane. Thank you, Ingrid Evans. Thank you, Connor Dean. Thank you, Robert Putt. Thank you, Robert Eads, I think. Thank you, Ross Hatt. Thank you, Michael Akin Solire. Thank you, Madhav Sharma. Thank you, Fiona Skinner. Thank you, Levi Bent. Thank you, Matilda Kime. Sure. Thank you, Peter Bankole. Thank you, Brian Fletcher. Thank you, Nick Kellington. Thank you, Nicholas Blaine. Thank you, Ian White. Thank you, Ruby Wax. Thank you, Jane Burtish. Thank you, Kieran Shah. Thank you, Philippe Spell. Philippe, not Felipe. I don't know, I'm reading it as Philippe. Thank you, Aaron Dockard. Thank you, Haley Osborne. Thank you, Ali Watt. Thank you, Roger Barclay. Thank you, Nicholas Day. Thank you, Amara Okereke. Thank you, David Bertrand. Thank you, Anne-Sophie Marie. Thank you, Getton Alderman. Thank you, Dylan Barder. Dylan Bader? I don't know. As Crab. Thank you, Nkosi Stole. That's definitely a South African name. Thank you, Harry McIntyre. Thank you, Jolian Coy. Thank you, Nathan Clow. Thank you, Katrina Nare. Thank you, Victor Ali. Thank you, Liam West. Thank you, Fred Haig. Thank you, Hebby Beardsall. Thank you, Nick Preston. Thank you, Tom Durand Prickard. Thank you, James Craze. Thank you, BT Edney. Thank you, Alice Hegg. Thank you, Brandon Besser. Thank you, Marussia Frank. Thank you, Mike Quinn. Thank you, Glenn Prickard. Thank you, Shiraz Eich. Thank you, Tom Bonington. Thank you, Ned Costello. Thank you, Gavin Spokes. Thank you, Damien Farrell. Thank you, Matthew Pigeon. Full spelling for pigeon. Thank you, Claire Roy Harvey. Thank you, Joseph Artley. Thank you, David Westhead. Thank you, Daniel Antwell. Thank you, Hugh Sachs. Thank you, Amar Doofus. Sorry if Doofus or something, I don't know. Thank you, Tim Plester. Thank you, Chike Chan. Thank you, James Cooney. Thank you, Anil Gautam, yeah. Thank you, Ava Jane Willis. Thank you, Alice Ewing. Alice Ewing. Thank you, Chelsea Edge. Thank you, Patrice Nayambana. Patrice Nayambana. Thank you, Stephen Stanton. Thank you, Nick Owenford. Why was he uncredited? If his name is... Thank you, Sam Schober. Thank you, Christopher Presswell. Thank you, Richard Price. Where are all these people uncredited? Okay, thank you, Marion Laurenchik. Thank you, Edward Terry. Thank you, Matthew Dale. Thank you, Steve Brunton. Thank you, Clement Osti. Thank you, Billy Mansell. Thank you, Alan D. West. Thank you, Max E. Maccabe. Thank you, Francesca Dadden. That's a tough one. Thank you, Tony McCarthy. Thank you, Anastasia Zabarchuk. Thank you, David Chong. Thank you, Bishore Bat. Thank you, Kenny Lee Banefo. Thank you, Neil Alexander Smith. Thank you, Jonathan Chetam. Thank you, Carlos Damasceno. Thank you, Darren Sinden. Thank you, Lex Lamprey. Thank you, Jessica Wei Sum Tong. Thank you, Luis Woodhead. Thank you, Christian Discuyo. Thank you, Daniel Rosenberg. Thank you, David Wrigley Williamson. Because it's like extras. They're like extras. Maybe that's why they're uncredited. But anyways, thank you, Joel Meakin Collins. Wait, did I do? Okay, thank you, Daniel Rosenberg. Thank you, David Ringley Williamson. Thank you, Joel Meakin Collins. Thank you, Sim Whitwer. Thank you, David W. Collins. Thank you, Barry Gingell. Thank you, Jonathan Cass. Thank you, Peter Watson. Thank you, Dominique Weatherbill. Wetherell. Thank you, Paul O'Kelly. Paul O'Kelly. Thank you, Lee Stevens. Thank you, Tyrone Love. Thank you, Zoe Newton Kelsey. Thank you, Rod Glenn. Thank you, Mark Hockley. Thank you, Timmy Hodgson. Thank you, Yaya Bagash. Thank you, Shakil Hussain. Thank you, Andrew Greaves. Thank you, Ali Al-Qadari. Thank you, Diego Barraza. Thank you, Mahesh Patel. Thank you, Jason Christopher. Thank you, Trevor Watts. Thank you, Will Padfield. Thank you, Andy M. Milligan. Thank you, Gianni Calcetti. Thank you, Callan Kavanagh. Thank you, Ethan Keaton. Thank you, Mickey Lewis. Mickey or Mikey? Thank you, Amour Pish. Amour Pish? I don't know. Thank you, Ross Carter. Thank you, Gail Taplin. And that's it for the cast. It's like we're only on page 26 and we're going to move on to the producers now. I think this, well, obviously Tony Gilroy is going to appear a few times, but it's okay, I'll read it anyways. Just going to drink some water. Alright, so moving on to producers, we have thank you, John Gilroy. Thank you, Tony Gilroy. Thank you, John Hampane. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, who I thanked earlier, but again, thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, for making this show happen. Thank you, David Minty. Thank you, Sanne Wallenberg. Going back to Kathleen Kennedy, I know that there's a lot of hate towards her for approving all these shitty Star Wars projects like the Acolyte and all that, but credit where credit is due, you know, like she approved Rogue One to be made, so we have to be, you know, I guess thankful for that. But anyways, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but yeah. Thank you, Sanne Wallenberg. Thank you, Kate Hazel. Thank you, Stephen Schiff. Thank you, Luke Hall. Schiff or Schiff? I don't know. Thank you, Luke Hall. Thank you, Elaine Waugh. Thank you, Susie Wilson. Thank you, Michael A. Garcia. Thank you, Diego Luna. He was a producer, of course, on season 2. Thank you, Toby Haynes. Thank you, Carl Caffrey. That is technically a name of someone that I know, but that's their other name. So I'm gonna count it towards it as Carl. So thank you, Carl Caffrey. Thank you, Ali O'Leary. Thank you, Michelle Redwan. Those are the producers. And now moving on to composers. The music in the show is also really good, of course. So thank you, Nicholas Brittle. Thank you, Brandon Roberts. Hey, just those two. Cool stuff. Cinematographers. Thank you, Damian Garcia. Thank you, Adriano Goldman. Thank you, Christoph Nuyens. And thank you, Frank Lam. And of course, thank you, Mark Patton. Almost burped. Moving on to the editors. Thank you, John Gilroy. Thank you, Jan Miles. Thank you, Matthew Cannings. Thank you, Tim Porter. Thank you to Dan Roberts. Thank you, Simon Smith. Thank you, Hazel Bailey. Thank you, Francis Parker. Thank you, Craig Ferreira. Whoa. And thank you, Morten Hoberg. I don't even know how that is pronounced. I don't know, I'm not North European. But anyways, and now to the casting directors, I imagine. Thank you, Nina Gold, and thank you, Martin Ware. Really good job, guys. Production designer, thank you, Luke Hull. He produced production designer on all 24 episodes. It's amazing stuff. Nice. And also, I should mention this document is up to date as far as I know with the latest stuff. I extracted it last night, so I think it's up to date. For this day at least. Today's the 31st of May. Yeah. 31st of May 2025. Now to the art directors. Thank you, Toby Britton. Thank you, Andrea Borland. Thank you, Richard Campling. Thank you, Gordon Champ. Your champ. Thank you, Will Cobro. Thank you, Claire Fleming. Thank you, Richard Hardy. Thank you, Mark Harris. Thank you, Max Kleinchi. Thank you, Darren Tooby. Thank you, Sue Whitaker. Probably related to Forrest Whitaker. I don't know. Thank you, Juan Camara. Thank you, Julia Dehoff. Thank you, Peter Dorm. Dorm. Thank you, Solomon Honey. And another Gary with the wrong spelling, but I'm not gonna count it again. But thank you, Gary Yopling. Thank you, Charlie King. Thank you, Andrew Proctor. Thank you, Pippa Punch. It's a cute name, Pippa. Thank you, Joanne Riddler. Thank you, James M. Spencer. Nice. Now we are on page 30. We're making progress. For the set decorators, thank you, Rebecca Alloway. Thank you, Joe Gracemark. And now for costume designers, the costumes were really good this season, I'm not gonna lie. And especially Mon Mothma, she's always in the most elegant outfits imaginable. They're so futuristic, but also kind of modern in a way, but it's really amazing stuff. So thank you to the costume designer, Michael Wilkinson. Now moving on to the makeup department. Thank you, Holly Caddy. Thank you, Emily Etherington. Thank you, Rosalind Fox. Thank you, Gerdra Locute. I don't know. It's a thought that counts. Thank you, Lindsay McQuain. Thank you, Yasmin Monroe. Thank you, Emma Sherry. Thank Thank you, A.C. Watson. Thank you, Camare Ramiro. Camare Ramiro. Cool spelling. Thank you, Debbie Black. Thank you, Emma Scott. Thank you, Alex Rose. Wigmaker. Made Luthen's wigs. Thank you, Liz Barlow. Thank you, Ria Biggerstaff. It literally says bigger staff. That's really cool. Thank you, Brooke Dibble. Thank you, Adelaide Philippe. Thank you, Josephine Hoy. Thank you, Nicola Mount. Thank you, Danelle Nastasi. Thank you, Julio Parodi. Thank you, Laura Odette Phipps. Thank you, Adrian Rigby. Thank you, J. Bowen Schofield. Thank you, Salmo Del Campo. Thank you, Katie Finch. Thank you, Haley Gittins. Thank you, Lisa Holstead. Thank you, Sooyoung Kang. Thank you, Megan Keepens. Thank you, Katie Naramore. Thank you, Sophie Rachtberger. Thank you, Jesse Walwyn. Thank you, Aaron Wheatland. Thank you, Inma Azarin. Thank you, Julia Finch. Thank you, Gemma Carballo. Thank you, Samantha Denier. Thank you, Lauren Smith. Thank you, Eva Gillies. Thank you, Neil Montyman. Okay, thank you, Sophie Priscuyo. Thank you, Esther Liabana. Thank you. Thank you, Louise Burrows. It's Siri that's bothering me, that's why. I don't know why. Okay. Not triggered. That's good. Thank you, Louise Burrows. Thank you, Susie Battersby. Thank you, Chiara Ugolini. Thank you, Jess Heth. Thank you, Chris Lyons. Thank you, Emily Dodge. And thank you, Natasha Muti. A lot of people, which makes sense, obviously. Now for the production management. Thank you, Sam Turner. Thank you, Gary Bunn. Again, not counting it. Thank you, Laura Hunter. Thank you, Lulu Morgan. Thank you, Elaine War. Thank you, Jacobo Campos Montesinos. Thank you, Rafa Candino for the Spain. Thank you, Richard Hill. Thank you, Catherine Mednick. Thank you, Alberto Poveda. Thank you, Rachel Baconsfield Press. Thank you, Samuel Sharp. Thank you, Matt Spooner. Thank you, Lorraine Edwards. Thank you, Carl Caffrey. Thank you, Gabor Aguston. Thank you, and thank you, Carlotta Bonelli. That's for Italy. And now the second unit directors or assistant directors. Thank you, Daniel Cox. Thank you, Camille Hatcher. Thank you, Tom Rye. Thank you, Alice Arbonot. Thank you, Grant Butler. Thank you, Simone Dawkins. Simone. I heard that some people pronounce it Simone or Simone. Anyway, Simone Dawkins. Thank you, Nathan Foote. Thank you, Claire Freyan. Thank you, James Hood. Thank you, Elisha McNally. Ooh, sorry. Thank you, Danny Osma. Thank you, Sean Seymour. Thank you, Ella Stevenson. Thank you, Simon White. Thank you, Joe Willis. Thank you, Tor Cook. Thank you, Nathan Grant. Thank you, Dylan Henriksen. Thank you, Emily Johnson. Thank you, Francesca Keimer-Melia. Thank you, Alexander Lloyd. Thank you, Jordan McInnes. Thank you, Elliot Plumridge. Thank you, Harry Purdy. Thank you, Pablo R. Montenegro. Thank you, Tom Leafar Smith. Thank you, Camilla Southwell. Thank you, Martinique Thorpe. Thank you, Kirsty Tsois. It's an interesting one. Thank you, Luke Kimball Williams. Thank you, Ruby Victor. Thank you, Ross McGowan. Thank you, Laura Hernandez Vela. Thank you, Angie Paul. Thank you, Eduardo Wood. Thank you, Mia Hutler. Thank you, James Andrew Haven. Thank you, Quentin Javar. Thank you, Barry McCullough. Thank you, Sean Guest. Thank you, Ollie Robinson. Thank you, Jan Zalar. Thank you, Freddie Lovett. Thank you, Tom McNally. Thank you, ILD Murdoch. I've never seen that. Well, thank you, Ian Atkinson. I assume that's an I and not an L, because an L would be capital. Yeah, see, an L would be like that. Okay. Thank you, Ian Atkinson. Thank you, George Graham. Thank you, Finn McGrath. Thank you, Lindsay Muyo. Thank you, Tony Staples. Thank you, Stephen Carney. Thank you, Cameron Guest. Thank you, Chaz Harrington. Thank you, David Underwood. Thank you, Amrit Vijayakumar. Vijayakumar. Thank you, Van Luke Watson. Thank you, Samar Maguire. Thank you, Alison Piper. Thank you, Josh Sales. He should have been in sales department. Anyways, thank you, Danielle Scout. Thank you, Glenn Carroll. Thank you, Vicky Carter. Thank you, Yvonne Furry. Thank you, Mark Maley. Thank you, Bogdan Orlianova. Thank you, Katie Randall. Thank you, Ben Strebel. And thank you, Jean Adeline Feldhoen. Now, the art department, we're on page 39. The art department. Thank you, John Atkins. Thank you, Wasili Angelopoulos. Greek, definitely Greek. Thank you, Eleanor Bailey. Thank you, Christopher John Beaumont. Thank you, James Bede. Thank you, Jeff Clark. Thank you, Jimmy Davies. Thank you, Peter Day. Thank you, Jonathan James Evans. Thank you, Barry Gingell? Gingell? I don't know. Thank you, Giorgio Greco. Thank you, Robert Hainsworth. Thank you, Beth Harris. Thank you, Rebecca Lewis. Thank you, Daniel Lurie. Thank you, Adam Mayer. Thank you, Adam McGee Abe. Thank you, Brian Morris. Thank you, Michael Musgrave Porter. Thank you, Josh O'Neill. Thank you, Miguel Quina. Thank you, Joe Rainey. Thank you, Samantha Redwood. Thank you, Dominic Sicking. Thank you, Olivia Somari. Thank you, Hannah Treharn. Thank you, Jonathan Wallace. Ooh, thank you, Katie Joe Watson. I almost said John Watson. Thank you, Raymond Widowson. Thank you, Tim Wildgoose. Again, Siri, no. Thank you, Tim Wildgoose. Thank you, Mark Yo. Thank you, Alex Laurie. Anyways, thank you, Buddy Wilkinson. Thank you, Renato Cavallaro. Thank you, Al McAfee. Oh, McKee. Thank you, Al McKee. Thank you, Daniel Valentine. Thank you, Amanda Wilgrave. Thank you, Tim Adams. Thank you, Jordan Elaine. Thank you, Sophie Dyer Bartlett. Thank you, Joy Blumenthal. Thank you, Paul Briggs. Thank you, Margot Brosnan. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris Brown. Thank you, Clemency Bunn. Thank you, Karina Burrow. Thank you, Chris Coldow. Thank you, Chester Carr. Thank you, Rachel Carville. Thank you, Monica Casey. Thank you, Robert Shannon. Thank you, Matt Chillum. Kissom. Wow. Thank you, Martin Christopher. This is an interesting combination of letters. Kisholm. Yeah. Thank you, Martin Christopher. Thank you, Louis Coco Mazi. Thank you, Dean Coldham. Thank you, Anna Cherniewska. Thank you, Anna Cherniewska. I hope I'm getting that right. Thank you, Luke Das. Thank you, Richard Derbyshire. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, Abigail Dilby. Thank you, Martin Doust. Thank you, Paul Duff. Thank you, Sam Farr. Thank you, David Farrow. Thank you, Pete Fielding. Thank you, Alex Floyd. Thank you, Suzanne Feisen. Thank you, Ben Green. Thank you, Andrew Griffiths. Thank you, George Gunn. Thank you, Deck Hardy. Thank you, Theobald Harry. Thank you, Terry Haggerty. Thank you, Sam Hendel. Thank you, Matthew Hendel. Thank you, Solomon Honey. Thank you, Prue Howard. Thank you, Tom Hughes. Thank you, Kate Suzanne Hunter. Thank you, Alexander J. Hutchins. Thank you, Craig Jenkins. Thank you, Vincent Jenkins. Thank you, Chapman C.H. Khan. Thank you, Aruna Carrick. Thank you, Charlie King. Thank you, Max Clancy. Thank you, Robin Lawrence. Thank you, Jasmine Lean. Thank you, Jack Leather. Thank you, Mark Lobato. Thank you, Jake Lunt Davies. Thank you, Deirdre McCarthy. Thank you, Helen McCarthy. Thank you, Laura McDonald. Thank you, Peter McKinstry. Thank you, Hannah Meredith Smith. Thank you, Tommy Miles. Thank you, Alex Monroe Pruitt. Thank you, Stephen Murphy. Thank you, Billy Noonan. Thank you, James O'Brien. Thank you, Jane O'Hanlon. Thank you, David Packard. Thank you, Daniel Parkinson. Thank you, Helen. Damn, why can't I speak? Thank you, Helen Player. Thank you, Camille Rolt. Thank you, Tim Roberts. Thank you, Lara Ryder. Thank you, Keith Seymour. Thank you, Ellie Shanks. Thank you, Tom Sherm. Thank you, Tristan Smith. Thank you, Warren Stickley. Thank you, Chris Stressel. I don't know. Thank you, Luke Stronach. Thank you, Dave Sullivan. Thank you, Xavier Swinton Byrne. Thank you, Paul Sebesta. Thank you, Chloe Taylor. Thank you, Marcus Thorne. Thank you, Daniel Tomlinson. Thank you, Nick Tyrell. Then page 57. Thank you, Trin Volves. Thank you, Katerina Vanzi. Thank you, Manuel Villaseca Vaya. Thank you, Jake Ventris. Thank you, Ben Vokes. Thank you, Vito Walker. Thank you, Lucy Wall. Thank you, Claire Wallace. Thank you, Jamie Watson. Thank you, Amanda Ward. Thank you, Dickon Warner. Thank you, Toby Wheeler. Thank you, Silas G. Williams. Thank you, Storm Woodruff, I guess. Thank you, Andy Young. Thank you, Tyler Adlam. Thank you, Oscar Allen. Thank you, Louise Armour. Thank you, Denise Ball. Thank you, Paulina Camacho. Thank you, Archie Campbell Baldwin. Thank you, Rachel Cash. Thank you, Katerina Trisafi. Thank you, Mitchell Cooper. Thank you, Callum Courtney. Thank you, Sienna Cunningham. Thank you, Katie Dadswell. Thank you, Seb Davies. Thank Thank you, Lauren Dix. Thank you, Will Dixon. Thank you, Jonathan Downing. Thank you, Abby Ellison. Thank you, Pierre Farinol. Thank you, David Forsyth. Thank you, Briony Francis. Thank you, Pierre Greenway. Thank you, Alan Hardy. Thank you, Bex Hawks. Thank you, Ewan Holmes. Thank you, Teresa A. Kodakova. Thank you, Jake Gerard Din. Thank you, Nicola Jones. Thank you, Nicole Keating. Thank you, Rob King. Thank you, Thomas Kingsley. Thank you, Magdalena Cronenberg Swerin. Thank you, Saskia Lane. Thank you, Yak Lawson Wells. Thank you, Gary J. Losh. Another Gary, another wrong spelling. Thank you, Brooklyn Martin. Thank you, JP McCall. Thank you, Gracie Mila. Thank you, MJ Moan. Thank you, Morgan Moran. Thank you, Maggie Musial. Thank you, Christopher Peugeot. Thank you, Emma Proctor. Thank you, Francis Pulford. Thank you, Nick Ramsey. Thank you, Ben Ressa. Thank you, James Reynolds. Thank you, Jake Rose. Thank you, John Ryan. Thank you, Matthew Secombe. Thank you, Christian Short. Thank you, Jake Stoll. Thank you, Craig Tarry. Thank you, Kevin Bennett Teasdale. Thank you, Dave Tencombe. Thank you, Mark Titmus. Thank you, Ryan Anthony Ward. Thank you, Barry Wasick. Thank you, Joshua Webb. Thank you, Paul Weedle. Thank you, Alan Welburn. Thank you, Steve Wesley. Thank you, Ben Wilkinson. Thank you, Matty Williams. Thank you, Richard Bowler. Thank you, John Zimmerbright. Thank you, Callum Davison. Thank you, Paul Jones. Thank you, Brendan Houghton. Thank you, Joe Browning. Thank you, Temple Clark. Thank you, Ben Andrews. Thank you, Bobby Dutton. Thank you, Lydia Ducker. Thank you, Clea Bakuchi. Thank you, Christina Zimmerman. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Fiona Fu Finlayson. Thank you, Caroline Shelley. Thank you, David Hines. Thank you, Alan Page. Page 53 now. Speaking of pages, we're now on page 53. Thank you, Jennifer Mara. Thank you, Helen Brake. Thank you, Fergus O'Hare. Thank you, Darren Goodhead. Thank you, Nancy O'Connor. Thank you, Paddy Paddison. Thank you, Cassia Tabeka. Thank you, Ben Barrington Groves. Thank you, Seth Easterbrook. Thank you, Rudolph Watson. Thank you, Ryan Bradbury. Thank you, James Greeley. Thank you, Elliot Hames. Thank you, Scott McInnes. Thank you, Catherine Tidy. Thank you, Steve Clark. Thank you, Jessica Pearson. Thank you, James Cura. Thank you, Chloe James. Thank you, Nicholas McRae. Thank you, Maria Malin. Thank you, Parinya Garkum. Parinya Garkum. Thank you, Graham Patmore. Thank you, Rich Smith. Thank you, James Wilden. Thank you, Lotta Walgers. Thank you, Pablo Aviles. Thank you, Lee Briggs. Thank you, James Cook. Thank you, Jack Haggerty. Thank you, Peter Hooper. Thank you, Stuart Meridew. Thank you, Maura Mester. Thank you, Keaton Waker. Thank you, Billy Mackenzie. Thank you, Orlando James. Thank you, Matthew Forrest. Thank you, Stephanie Flurkin. Thank you, Courtney Wright. Thank you, Courtney Wright. Oh yeah, and thank you, Courtney Wright. That's that whole team. Damn. Okay. Gonna have a bit more water. Page 55. Way too far to turn back now. Not that I was planning on turning back, but yeah. Obviously not anyone, I don't expect anyone to watch this, but if anybody is watching and gets to this point, then I owe you, the first person to get to this point, if anyone's watching, then I owe you, because we're on page 55, I would owe you 55 euros. So just message me. But anyways, moving on to the sound department. We have David. Thank you, David Accord. Thank you. Wait, I hope I didn't forget to say thank you before naming anyone up there. I don't think so, but I really hope I did. But I don't think I did. Thank you, Jedediah Barton. Thank you, Jessica Engel. Thank you, George Hooker. Thank you, Josh Loden. Thank you, Steve Morris. Thank you, John Null. Thank you, Carrie Perry. Thank you, Michael Peters. Thank you, Margaret Pfeiffer. Margaret. Oh, I used to know a Margaret. Not Margaret. I knew a Margaret and a Margaret. Anyways, thank you, Margaret Pfeiffer. Thank you, Shelley Roden. Thank you, Juan Ruberio Morales. I think I already passed a Juan, but this is the second one, I think. And that's another name that I had on my list. So, nice one, Juan. Thank you, Scott Thixton. Thank you, Ross Weston. Thank you, Doug Winningham. Thank you, Matthew Wood. Thank you, Jordan Feemster. Thank you, Lee Thompson. Thank you, Sean England. Thank you, Jim Hawk. Thank you, Danielle Adams. Thank you, Scott Curtis. Thank you, Saul Didowo. Thank you, Saul Didowo. Thank you, Sean Farley. Thank you, J.R. Grubbs. Thank you, Julia Hardecker. Thank you, Imogen Jeffrey Badger. Thank you, Justy Jeremier. Thank you, William Mosley. Thank you, David Pfeiffer. Thank you, Ivan Peach. Thank you, Ava Porter. Thank you, Richard Quinn. Thank you, John Rose. Thank you, Ronnie Brown. Thank you, Louis Chelier Gray. Thank you, Kim B. Christensen. Thank you, Richard Duarte. Thank you, Andrea God. Thank you, Josh Gold. Thank you, Heike Kosi. Thank you, Dennis Leonard. Thank you, Emma Meaden. Thank you, Edgar Meza. Thank you, Christina Morse. Thank you, Alyssa Navarez. Thank you, Aidan Smith. Thank you, James Spencer. Thank you, Michael Sinden. Thank you, Tim White. Thank you, James Gibb. Thank you, Danny Hambrook. Thank you, Nicholas A. Egger. Thank you, Jonathan Greber. Thank you, Kirsten Kidwell. Thank you, Morris Concas. Thank you, Owen McClure. Thank you, Kyle Pitchford. Thank you, Nadine Richardson. Thank you, James Gregory. Thank you, Daniel Laurie. Thank you, Steve Slanik. Thank you, Peter Davis. Thank you, Thomas Fennell. Thank you, Leslie Liu. Thank you, Jeremy Mollard. Thank you, George Atkins. Thank you, Oren Beaton. Thank you, James Cooper. Thank you, Renzo Garcia. Thank you, Joey Gidley. Joe or Joey. Thank you, Fernando Gisbert. Thank you, Lewis Lovelace. Thank you, Gavin Marshall. Thank you, Julius Ridinger. Thank you, Simon Diggins. Thank you, Chris Navarro. Thank you, Sean Miller. Thank you, Alex Stalianu. Thank you, Romy Martinez. Thank you, Nick Roberts. Thank you, Scott Canizaro. Thank you, David Stanley. Thank you, Stefan Almqvist. Thank you, Sam Biggs. Thank you, Jenny Breckenridge. Thank you, Juliette Brown. Thank you, Bill Higley. Thank you, Thibault Arnold. Thank you, Kyle Allen. Thank you, Brian Magram. And thank you, Charlotte Toole. Sound trainee. Oh, they even have the trainees on here. Nice. Okay, moving on to special effects. Thank you, Joe Carlisle. Thank you, Alistair Anderson. Thank you, Vanessa Bastian. Thank you, Gerard Moore. Thank you, Claire Bannister. Thank you, Chris Barlow. Thank you, Fiona Barnes. Thank you, Tim Berry. Thank you, Brian Best. Thank you, Daniel Burnett. Thank you, Anthony S. Ciccarelli, I don't know. Thank you, Gary Cohen. This is like the fourth Gary, wrong spelling. Thank you, Luke Corbin. Thank you, Maria Cork. Thank you, Neil Daman. Thank you, Matthew Denton. Thank you, Brett Ellis. Thank you, Emma Jane Green. Thank you, Maxfield Hammett. Thank you, Gustav Hogan. Thank you, Joe Holden. Thank you, Serena Knott. Thank you, Samantha Langridge. Thank you, Nick Martin. Thank you, Darren May. Thank you, Isabel McInnes. Thank you, Charlie Nolan. Thank you, Carl Openshaw. Another Carl. Not that. There we go. That was, yeah, thank you, Carl Openshaw. Thank you, Natalie Pettigrew. Thank you, Karen Purgis. Thank you, Hamish Riddle. Thank you, Dave Rodham. Thank you, Bailey Sheridan. Thank you, Hayden Sheridan. Thank you, George Spensley Corfield. Thank you, George Spensley Corfield. Thank you, Jody Taylor. Thank you, Richard Thomas. Thank you, Richard van der Berg. Thank you, Oscar Williams. Thank you, Bailey Wright. Thank you, Jody Corp. Thank you, Jake Edwards. Thank you, Jody Altham. Thank you, Dean Ford. Thank you, Paul Gilston. Thank you, Matt Hart. Thank you, Courtney Hooper. Thank you, Barnaby J. Barnaby, it's a real name, wow. Thank you, Craig Leong. Thank you, Darren A. Mosher. Thank you, Luke Murphy. Thank you, Declan O'Donnell. Thank you, David Wrigley Williamson. Thank you, Scott A. Riley. Thank you, Josh Seatherton. Thank you, James Smith. Thank you, Ashton McCarthy Gold. Thank you, Giorgio Bart. Damn. Sorry. Thank you, Gerjo Baisar. Gerjo Baisar. Damn. I apologize, sir or ma'am. I don't know. That's a really tough one. Thank you, Louise Davies. Thank you, Lee Stevens. Thank you, Zach van der Berg. Thank you, James Monroe Bowles. Thank you, James Henry Thomas. Thank you, Katie Newitt. Thank you, Simon Knott. Thank you, Paul Warren. Thank you, Flora Warrington. Thank you, Eloy Cervera. Thank you, Beth Hawks. And thank you, Jason White. Damn, okay. Interesting. Now we're on page 66. We're almost at 100. When I get to 100, I'll be so relieved. But yeah, let's move on. Now it's the visual effects team or people. Thank you, Zach Bunker from Ireland. Just real light and magic. I want to visit their campus someday. It has a lot of cool tech. But anyways, thank you, Zach Bunker. Thank you, Matt Carter. Thank you, Kirk Shantrain. Thank you, Ross Collier. Thank you, Samuel Cordingley. Thank you, Jack Kriener. Thank you, Paolo Darko. Thank you, Stefan Drury. Thank you, Sissy Foles. Thank you, TJ Foles. Thank you, Ashley Ginsing. Thank you, Max Hicks. Thank you, Moen Leo. Thank you, Dominic Martin. Thank you, Anne Nguyen. Thank you, Ali Park. Thank you, Alex Payne. Thank you, Rachel Rose. Thank you, Jean-Clement Sorry. Thank you, Gregory Saint-Germain. Thank you, Andras Soros. Thank you, David Sprecher. Thank you, Oliver Beaulieu. Thank you, Louise Bertrand. Thank you, Mathieu Boucher. Thank you, Caroline Belize. Thank you, Samuel Cardinal. Thank you, Jimmy Karen. Thank you, Joni Croteau. Thank you, Thierry Delattre. Thank you, Zachary Dufault. Thank you, Dominique Rodreau. Thank you, Stéphane Gervais. Thank you, Jasmine Hazel. Thank you, Bruno Pierre Jobin. Thank you, Catherine Lecavalier. Thank you, Martin Lucier. Thank you, Richard Martin. Thank you, Michael Murdoch. Prisoner of High Bridge. Thank you, Olivier Benchard. Thank you, Jonathan Perth. Thank you, Patrick Pish. Thank you, Jordan Picot. Thank you, Sebastian Rio. Thank you, Mark St. Galay. Thank you, Gibran Taimuri. Gibran Taimuri. Thank you, Yannick Petrol. Thank you, Tosin Ogunleye. Thank you, Ellen Stushi. Thank you, Ashley Wild. Thank you, Rebecca Han Yun. Thank you, Samuel L'Oreal Goulet. Thank you, Steve Pelchert. Thank you, Patrick Tass. Thank you, Nadia Volodina. Thank you, Dimitri Anderber. Thank you, Cedric Arsenal. Thank you, Marie-Claude Aubry. Thank you, Michael Bergeron. Thank you, Pierre Blanc. Thank you, Alex Blacquier. Thank you, Maurice Bouchard. Thank you, David Bedard. Thank you, David Belanger d'Ambremont. Thank you, Andre Cabaco. Thank you, Michael Coteau. Thank you, Christophe Damiano. Thank you, Patrice Ferron-Craig. Thank you, René Fillon. Thank you, David Gary. Thank you, Yannick Goudreau. Thank you, Olivier Gravel. Thank you, Maxime Grenier. Thank you, Alexandro Itchem. Thank you, Joseph Kasparian. Thank you, Jennifer Kitching. Thank you, Melissa Laframboise May. Thank you, Mathieu Lalonde. Thank you, Gabriel Marchand. Thank you, Sylvain Rio. Thank you, David Auberge. Thank you, Emil Rosenberger. Thank you, Matthew Smith. Thank you, Stefan Solner. Thank you, Olivia Starr. Thank you, Alexandra Tessier. Thank you, Marco Tremblay. Thank you, Philippe Vachon. Thank you, Jessica Vallet. Thank you, Valerie Villeneuve. Ooh. Wait, are you related to a certain Danny? Jason, thank you, Jason Whitley. Thank you, Manuel Bruder. Thank you, Gabriel Schiffer. Thank you, Rabia Engen. Thank you, Benoit Morin. Thank you, Victor Roland Beaumont. Thank you, Tilo Sparkle. Thank you, Valentin Verfondel. Thank you, Felix Wolf. Thank you, Thomas Bacanu. Thank you, Michael Barrière. Thank you, Patrick Couturier. Thank you, Alexandra Denis. Thank you, Pedro Fernandez Santos. Thank you, Christopher Grifasi. Thank you, Alexei Jusik Prevost. Thank you, Alain Lacroix. Thank you, Kayla Lane. Thank you, Marielle Pelletier. Thank you, Sylvain Régnier. Thank you, Emma Tessé Langevin. Thank you, Lakeisha Monet White. Thank you, Silvio Alberti. Thank you, Simon Bergeron. Thank you, Doria Fontaine. Thank you, Yoshka Herlich. Thank you, Eric Leos. Thank you, Lawrence Emi Miron. Thank you, Eduardo Villarreal. Thank you, Marcus Alexander. Thank you, Raul Alves. Thank you, Lily Anderson. Thank you, Omid Arzam. Thank you, Helen Baker. Thank you, Ben Batty. Thank you, Mike Bouillot. Thank you, Andrew Booth. Thank you, Andrew Boutray. Thank you, Lisa Brody. The third floor. Okay. Thank you, Luke Butler. Thank you, Charmaine Chan. Thank you, Youngwoo Choi. Thank you, Ryan B. Clark. Thank you, Dan Copping. Thank you, Nancy Christina. Thank you, Christian Dolberg. Thank you, Oscar Dobson. Thank you, Brendan Dublin. Thank you, Tella Dumanoglu. Thank you, Kate Edge. Thank you, Adam Androdi. Thank you, Vinicius Favero. Ooh, I know Vinicius, but he's not on my list. Thank you, Christopher Ford. He's a colleague. Thank you, Matt Foster. Thank you, Richard Fry. Thank you, Martin Furman. Thank you, David Gattenby. Thank you, Andre Giordani. Thank you, KS Haddock. Thank you, Simon Herden. Thank you, Mary Herschel. Thank you, Tilly Holton. Thank you, Mongo Ori. Thank you, Maman Huez. Thank you, Laurent Ogugno. Thank you, Mark Hutchins. Thank you, David Jadowski. Polish. Thank you, Ellen Jaram. Thank you, Carolina Jeromin. Thank you, Will Jones. Thank you, Paria Kamiyab. Thank you, Tim Keen. Thank you, Gabor Kiss. Thank you, Sebastian Kuder. Thank you, Eric Levin. Thank you, Brendan Little. Thank you, Beaumont Lowenthal. Thank you, Sue Lester. Thank you, Amy Madigan. Thank you, Liana Mansour. Thank you, David Mart. Thank you, Zoe Medcroft Brown. Thank you, Desiree Maduri. Thank you, Charlie Middleton. Thank you, Christopher Miller. Thank you, Kara Missenheimer. Thank you, Claire Morris. Thank you, Dylan Owen. Thank you, Keith Pang. Thank you, Ricken Patel. Thank you, Dan Pettifer. Thank you, Luigi Pisciota. Luigi Pisciota. Thank you, Fernanda Pizzolato. Thank you, Andrei Poleshayev. Thank you, Ed Price. Thank you, Scott Pritchard. Thank you, Yena Senkova. Thank you, Duncan Ramsey. Thank you, Imran Rahman. Thank you, Alicia Raymond Ramos. Thank you, David M. Ross. Thank you, Yane Sahakian. Thank you, Marika Sam German. Thank you, Neil Scanlon. Thank you, Katharina Schumacher. Thank you, Harry Shaper. Thank you, Betty Shaw. Thank you, Dane Allen Smith. Thank you, Natalie Smith. Thank you, Daniel St. Amar. Thank you, Hannah Starkins. Thank you, Bobby Strain. Thank you, Abigail Sullivan. Thank you, George Tesla. Thank you, Nadine Thomas. Thank you, Lee Tibbetts. Thank you, Phil Sang. Thank you, Terry Sang. Thank you, Eric Sui. Thank you, Kat Turner. Thank you, Saban Ungurianu. Cool. Thank you, Chris Upson. Thank you, Yaneka Fanema Osborne. Thank you, Jamie Picedo. Thank you, Maximilian Gordon Vogt. Thank you, Mate Voros. Thank you, Katie Watling. Thank you, Palmaja Watson. Thank you, Luke Weller. Thank you, Katie Williams. Thank you, Sunny Wong. Thank you, Rachel Wright. Thank you, James Yeoman. Thank you, Sean Yue. Thank you, Daniel Alejo. Thank you, Pravan Alu. Thank you, Maria Andrishuk. Thank you, Colin Banco. Thank you, Claudio Bassi. Thank you, Yogi Bassi. Thank you, Trent Bateman. Thank you, Emma Bayat. Thank you, Stuart Burnham. Thank you, Dayton Dozma. Thank you, Amelia Brick Carroll. Thank you, Adam Broadbear. Thank you, Nicole Sedic. Sorry. Thank you, Simon Chu. Thank you, Miles Corliss. Thank you, George Dios. Thank you, Stephen Dichter. Thank you, Justin Drew. Thank you, Marcus Dryden. Thank you, Frederic Dupois. Thank you, Mike Zienik. Thank you, Liam Edgeworth. Thank you, Francesca Flores. Thank you, Victor Frankel. Thank you, Paul Gardner. Thank you, Amy Gibson. Thank you, Peyton Gilbertson. Thank you, Melissa Goddard. Thank you, Lawrence Bodinsky. Thank you, Stefan Habel. Thank you, Stefan Hampel. Thank you, Chris Hawkinson. Thank you, Gareth Henson. Thank you, Stephen Hill. Thank you, Sam Holloway. Thank you, Cyrus Hopkins. Thank you, Lane Howard. Thank you, Brian R. Jackson. Thank you, Simon Jargo. Thank you, Brianna Johnson. Thank you, Mike Jutan. Thank you, Varun Kamani. Thank you, Abby Kenny. Thank you, Joel Magoo. Thank you, George Manton. Thank you, Valerio Marquez. Thank you, Kara Matheson. Thank you, Kate McVoid. Thank you, Riley McDougall. Thank you, Helen McKilwick. Thank you, Amon McKinney. Thank you, George Milovanovic. Thank you, Zach Morris. Thank you, Will Muto. Thank you, Joe Neeson. Thank you, Andrew Olaseinde. Okay. Thank you, Bradley Page. Thank you, Shalene Patel. Thank you, Philippe Pelletier. Thank you, Dora Panovong. Thank you, Nick Prohl. Thank you, Eduardo Ramos. Thank you, George Redstone. Thank you, Calvin Ruan. Thank you, Brian Schultz. Thank you, Sarah Schiali. Technically, that is one of the people on my list here. Found a name. I found another name. Thank you, Seamus Sharkey. Thank you, Ted Slominski. Thank you, Marcus Sterner. Thank you, Emily Stranton. Thank you, Vishwa Priya Swaminathan. Thank you, Hitesh Tadani. Thank you, Periatan Devasilan. Thank you, Nacho Thomas. Thank you, Ihamu Upo. Thank you, Martin Voller. Thank you, Elise Wallbridge. Thank you, Seamus Walsh. Thank you, Lewis Watts. Thank you, Hazel Witherall. Thank you, Jack White. Thank you, Sydney Williams. Thank you, Rob Roywood. Thank you, Adam Thomas Wright. Thank you, Victoria Yankova. Thank you, Daniel Rafael Zuban. Thank you, Tanya Boliu. Thank you, James Daniel Haynes. Thank you, Justin Herbert. Thank you, Vincent Liebig. Thank you, Belly Mingmong. Thank you, Ali Nezafat. Thank you, Erica Normanding. Thank you, Miriam Rickard Lalonde. Thank you, Benjamin Ross. Thank you, Barbara Dobrovitz. Thank you, Anne Fortin. Thank you, Caitlin Fush. Thank you, Jae-hee Young. Thank you, Sergio Mucino. Thank you, Samuel Rosu. Thank you, Nicolas Scontaro. Thank you, Luke Siking. Thank you, Olivier Alma. Thank you, Melanie Karanen. Thank you, Jordan Cassidy. Thank you, Isabel Desrochers. Thank you, Annie Dufresne. Thank you, Timo Farbach. Thank you, Gabriel Forbes. Thank you, Mathieu Leclerc. Thank you, Jade Lessard. Thank you, Yael Majors. Yael. Thank you, Marie Nakle. Thank you, Vincent Quintal. Thank you, Pierre Raymond. Thank you, Michael Rock. Thank you, Audrey-Anne Surprenant. Thank you, Sylvie Talbot. Thank you, Philippe Theroux. Thank you, Anne Tremblay. Thank you, Ariane Benoit. Thank you, André-Pierre Cormier. Thank you, Catherine Dumas. Hey, that surname Cormier, it's like the kid that plays Aang in Netflix's Avatar adaptation. I wonder if they're related. Probably not. But maybe. Anyways, thank you, Catherine Dumas. Thank you, Marta Honey. Thank you, Alexandra Ludin. Thank you, Alba Sanchez Serrano. Thank you, Guillaume St. Aubin Sears. Thank you, Anthony Bellinger. Thank you, Benjamin Genrich. Thank you, Tanya Kular. Thank you, Kenny Levesque. Thank you, Christoph Trudel. Thank you, Ken Yu. Thank you, Zofia Halasek. Thank you, Shane Yeager Collins. Thank you, Lewis Martin. Thank you, Kiro Bia. Thank you, Christophe Judy. Thank you, Christophe Lalonde Lavigne. Thank you, Matthew Law. Thank you, Oliver Mills. Thank you, Manuela Bolk. Thank you, Jennifer Berkey. Thank you, Juliette Duncan. Thank you, Elsa Lemire. Thank you, Andrew Winters. Thank you, Tim Adams. Thank you, Pierre Alexander. Thank you, Charletienne Damour. Thank you, Joshua DeMarco. Thank you, Ali Jaffagoli. Thank you, Gordon Marshall. Thank you, Cedric Moens de Hayes. Thank you, Suyin Nepali. Thank you, Nana Ajay. Thank you, Ankita Agrawal. Thank you, Muhammad Ali. Thank you, Muhammad Ali. Thank you, Philippe Almont. Thank you, Seong Hyung An. Thank you, Benjamin Anderson. Thank you, Greg Anderson. Thank you, Beatrice Antis. Thank you, Syed Arafa Absar. Thank you, Yoti Aurora. Thank you, Ando Avila. Thank you, Nafisa Baker. Thank you, Mario Bandage. Thank you, John Beatty. Thank you, Malika Beckford. Thank you, Nora Bedavian. Thank you, Nico Bell. Thank you, Elena Bolankova. Thank you, Stephanie Brandolini. Thank you, Baby Broyo. Thank you, Benjamin Brown. Thank you, Ross Codler. Thank you, Julia Capco. Thank you, David Kaplan. Thank you, Tim Catalano. Thank you, Metal Chandra. Thank you, Junwei Chen. Thank you, William Chen. Thank you, Matt Coley. Thank you, Shane Cook. Thank you, Nick Crew. Thank you, Laura Jane Dot. Thank you, Andrew Densham. Thank you, Akash Desai. Thank you, Anuja Desai. Thank you, Tad Diego. Thank you, Richard Dyson. Thank you, Jake Eftimio. Eftimio. I don't know. Full name. Thank you, Amir Fatemi. Thank you, Ian Flanagan. Thank you, Kyle Friol. Thank you, Gerard Gannon. Thank you, Valeria Isadra Griladini. Thank you, Jordan Gillett. Thank you, Azad Gordon. Thank you, Andrew Graham. Thank you, Renee Grasser. Thank you, Jason Gray. Thank you, Mario Gutierrez. Thank you, Junyu Guak. Thank you, Wolfgang Haas. Thank you, Jake Harper. Thank you, Thomas Hartman. Thank you, Hamid Hamatyar. Thank you, Robert Himmelberg. Thank you, Mong Klawin. Thank you, Paul Holmes. Thank you, Alexandra Rabarchuk. Thank you, Jackie Huang. Thank you, Benjamin Huber. Thank you, Wendy J. Colbert. Thank you, Azadeh Aranban. Thank you, Liana Jackson. Thank you, Jack Jenkins. Thank you, Wu Hee Jin. Thank you, Ah Hyung Jo. Thank you, Simon Yokushis. Thank you, Rushikesh Joshi. Thank you, David Kennakanyan. Thank you, VJ Kanhai. Thank you, Mario Kenach. Okay, thank you, Emina Kezo. Thank you, Cindy Chu. Thank you, Donghyun Kim. Thank you, Julian Klein. Thank you, Paul Kolsanov. Thank you, Vivek Cole. Thank you, Beta German Kovacs. Okay. Thank you. I just did Beta German Kovacs, I think. Thank you, Sunny Koya. Thank you, Angelina Krivoshena. Thank you, Jiwoo Kwak. Thank you, Philip Lawson. Thank you, Annabelle Le. Thank you, Justin Lee. Is that supposed to be Lee, but they left out the letter E? Unlikely. Thank you, Justin Lee. Thank you, Max Lee. Thank you, Suyin Lee. Thank you, Wesley Lee. Thank you, Juliette Lemaire. Thank you, Glenn Lewis. Thank you, Isaac Lipstad. Thank you, Nina Lowe. Thank you, Lucy Long. Thank you, Eva Marda. Thank you, Lauren Makula. Thank you, Iskander Melak. Thank you, Aditya Menon. Thank you, Jonah Mikod. Thank you, Ivan Mikovic. Thank you, Ivan Mikovic. Thank you, Benjamin Milling. Thank you, James Monty. Thank you, Nathan Muth. Thank you, Didier Mwenza. Thank you, Thank you, Harry Mukhopadhyay. Thank you, Conrad Murray. Thank you, Yuri Muziria. Thank you, Stephanie Namkong. Thank you, Marlene Nels. Thank you, Yeten Ning. Thank you, Cindy O'Hare. Thank you, Melissa Olson. Thank you, Bartek Opatovicki. Thank you, Taran Orn. Thank you, Mark Ostroff. Thank you, Rudy Pandia. Thank you, Hwang Jun Park. Thank you, Jessup Park. Thank you, Seong Park. Thank you, Yongbin Park. Thank you, John Patrick. Thank you, Johannes Peter. There we go. Here's another one. Woo, Johannes, name drop. I'm surprised I haven't found a Gary yet, and we're already on page 98. It's insane. I mean, a Gary with the correct spelling, not more now. But anyways, thank you, Tina Gokfam. Thank you, Kelly Plord. Thank you, Hamid Pokemon. Thank you, Kenyon Prater. Thank you, Sergio Kijano. Thank you, Sheridan Queering. Thank you, Ravi Rai. Thank you, Patrick Redmond. Thank you, Victoria Rohachova. Thank you, David Ronchi. Thank you, Sue Rowe. Thank you, Nathan Rush. Thank you, Justin Saber. Thank you, Lucas Scheller. Thank you, Angelika Schweitzer. Thank you, Mukhtar Sheikh. Thank you, Jeff Shapiro. Thank you, Deepak Sharma. Thank you, Neha Shenoy. Thank you, Deji Shalola. Thank you, Ruxar Siddiq. Thank you, Magnus Shangerlund. Thank you, Connor Smith. Thank you, Ian Smith. Thank you, Gisub Song. Thank you, Eugene Song. Thank you, Michael Sauvage. Thank you, Ralph Spike. Thank you, Simon Su. Thank you, Sebastian Solwang. Thank you, Noah Taylor. Thank you, Amar Tapa. Thank you, Odin Thompson. Thank you, Connor Tauman. Thank you, Stefan Trojansky. Thank you, Dominique Pidotsoy. Thank you, Rachel Olesny. Thank you, Narendra Kumar Vadapali. Wow, we're on page 100. Thank you, Thomas Dane Wagenaar. Thank you, Samuel Waghorn. Thank you, Scott Wakeford. Thank you, Martin Weaver. Thank you, Richard Way. Thank you, Niaz Zafar. Thank you, Jacob Zaguri. Thank you, Ziyu Zheng. Thank you, Jimmy Zhu. We are on page 100. And I still have the energy to continue somehow. But my arm is like, I feel like I'm working out almost. My arm is like in this position, just scrolling. But anyways, we have 124 pages to go. Or at least 100, because I know that the bottom pages are just some random details, but we'll get to it. Anyways, thank you, Douglas Zing. Wait, should I do like a reward for getting to page 100? I don't think anybody's watching, but somebody's watching and they get to this point. First person to get to this point, I will give them 100 euros for getting to this. But it's, yeah, unlikely. But anyways, thank you, Douglas Zing. Thank you, Eduardo Azcue. Thank you, Yannick Bissonnet. Thank you, Leo Patrick Wood. Thank you, Yvonne Jensen. Thank you, Adrian Litzke. Thank you, Alan Magland. Thank you, Kelly McCarthy. Thank you, Gabriel Monette. Thank you, Emmanuel Pelletier. Thank you, Florian Rin. Thank you, Keith Sellers. Thank you, Yelmer Boskma. Thank you, Hannes Dornart. Thank you, Claire Duty. Thank you, Oliver Eichhoff. Thank you, Darain Faisal. Ooh, there we go. I found a Faisal. It's a surname, but it doesn't matter. I still found one. Wow, okay. Terem Faisal. Thank you, Emma Helfricht. Thank you, Zoran Kazic. Thank you, Genevieve Legault. Thank you, Marcus Oswald. Thank you, Ali Okachi. Thank you, Pamela Pesarelli. Thank you, Aito Prieto. Thank you, Sebastian Schmoll. Thank you, David Seeger. Thank you, Irina Smitakova. Thank you, Hannah Sundman. Thank you, Cedric Bazayu. Thank you, Christian Bergraff. Thank you, François Couillon. Thank you, Florian Dax. Thank you, Chad Dombrova. Thank you, Yasvin Hora. Thank you, Ria Jane. Thank you, Fred Kim. Thank you, Brody McKelvin. Thank you, Chanel Park. Thank you, Carolina Plata. Thank you, Christian Pokorny. Thank you, Vinay Kumar Todabindi. Thank you, Pierre Hugh Vachon. Thank you, Bram Van Rompuy. Thank you, Olivier Vogel. Thank you, Carlos Zaleda Arzabe. Thank you, Van Amirkayan. Thank you, Veronique Gui. Thank you, Xavier Larocque. Thank you, Robert Pellerin. Thank you, Roger Tortosa. Thank you, Brendan Carroll. Thank you, Charles Cristoforu. Thank you, Pietro Coco. Thank you, Withany Donsuipe. Thank you, Jack George. Thank you, Patrick Marek. Thank you, Andrew McGreevy. Thank you, Siren O'Connor. Thank you, David Ricarda. Thank you, Maxime Sorokin. Thank you, Luke Veli. Thank you, Marie-Pierre Avwan. Thank you, Darshan V. Bain. Thank you, Adam Bod. Thank you, Adam Klein. Thank you, Natalie De La Garza. Thank you, Prashant Dortre. Thank you, Pedro Dietrich. Thank you, Elisa and Dion. Thank you, Moritz Ike. Thank you, Vinod Gadav. Thank you, Alec Galdard. Thank you, Patrick W. Hall. Thank you, Maria Panchevska. Thank you, Monica Kang. Thank you, Rahul Karavadra. Thank you, Bhargava Karne. Thank you, Virag Ankotny. Thank you, Sebastian Leclerc. Thank you, Bensi Matthew. Thank you, Shakil Nadkarni. Thank you, Amit Narwani. Thank you, Nicholas Eng. Thank you, Mark Nori. Thank you, Talmar Rangel. Thank you, Amanda Roop. Thank you, Shailene Sol. Thank you, Vivek Shedgar. Thank you, Shakti Singh. Thank you, Tim Straubinger. Thank you, Angelia Tai. Thank you, Simran Tekar. Thank you, Delphine Timote. Thank you, Dennis Tomov. Thank you, Thomas Warrender. Thank you, Banu. Thank you, Banu Prakash Reddy Yunamula. Thank you, Sofia Zapata. Thank you, Estivalis Zaragoza. Thank you, Julian Dubasset. Thank you, Mathieu Godin. Thank you, Samuel Lepage Bedard. Thank you, Benoit Paya. Thank you, Kevin Plett. Thank you, Joseph C. Thank you, Christian Valentin. Thank you, Nunzio Bitetti. Thank you, Rachel Buchard. Thank you, Hakyung Chung. Thank you, Louisa Ellison. Thank you, Gaurav Gata. Thank you, Jan Herbicek. Thank you, Corin Morgan. Thank you, Antonia Palmer. Thank you, Michael Peter. Thank you, Paul Wodio. Thank you, Rong Zhao. Thank you, Brett Ablenas. Thank you, Nicholas Bastian. Thank you, Alexis Betchett. Thank you, Francis Bernard. Thank you, Aaron Blankenship. Thank you, Ashley Bluth. Thank you, Valentin Bosch. Thank you, Mahmoud Bobetra. Thank you, Mathieu Baudreau. Thank you, Dan Britton. Thank you, Lawrence Brunel Turcot. Thank you, Charles Berube. Thank you, Sebastian Carrillo. Thank you, Alexandra Karen. Thank you, Kevin Cassistat. Thank you, Donnie Choi. Thank you, Nikhil Chorgul. Thank you, Pamela Cot Langevin. Thank you, Johan Roy da Silva. Thank you, Dominique Dagle. Thank you, Raphael de Bigard. Thank you, Lenny Desrocher. Thank you, Sarah Dumanil Gaumont. Thank you, Zina Alayan. Thank you, Vincent Falian. Thank you, Daniel Foley. Thank you, Mathieu Gagnon Calistan. Mathieu Gagnon Calistan. Sorry. Thank you, Daniel Gaumont Sosi. Thank you, Jean-Philippe Gao. Thank you, Raoul Gupta. Thank you, Jonathan Hermond. Thank you, Roman Hubert. Thank you, Shen Chen Ji. Thank you, Mike Joskovic. Thank you, Murtuza Kargunwala. Thank you, Chambopa Sophie Kong. Thank you, Christian Kovac. Thank you, Catherine Lheureux. Thank you, Nagad Lagagne Beloin. Thank you, Sophie Larocque. Thank you, Marie-France Latour. Thank you, Pauline Lavaille. Thank you, Nicolas Lemay. Thank you, Maxime Lemieux. Thank you, Félix Liva. Thank you, Louis-Alexandre Lord. Thank you, Stéphane Mayel. Thank you, Melissa Malo Partel. Thank you, Lena Martin. Thank you, Raphael Martins. Thank you, Olivier McLeish. Thank you, Alexandre Meneur. Thank you, Leanne Morin. Thank you, Shahub Nakayama. Thank you, Rosemary Nole. Thank you, Eileen Nordmark. Thank you, Camille Page. Thank you, Ibrahim Benori Park. Thank you, Raoul Petit. Thank you, Cédric Pepin. Thank you, François Poirier. Damn, I'm definitely butchering these names. Thank you, Ariane Paulin. Thank you, Dania Richard. Thank you, Stéphane Rio. Thank you, Misha Russo. Thank you, Helene Bourdage. Thank you, Marc-André Roy. Thank you, Ashutosh Singh. Thank you, Ishmael Saint-Pierre. Thank you, Olivia So. Thank you, Patrick Taillet. Thank you, Olivier Thiraud. I think the French names are a bit easier for me. I can pronounce them relatively. Thank you, Meile Trahan. Thank you, Veronique Tremblay. Thank you, Sebastian Here. Thank you, Bjorn Wortmann. Thank you, Stéphane Arsenault. Thank you, Christoph Hoffman. Thank you, Ivo Klaus. Thank you, David Mikkelsen. David Mikkelsen. Thank you, Cotton Schultz Bugs. Thank you, Samantha Abda. Thank you, Aurélien Ardisson. Thank you, Bakar. Just the first name. That's really cool. That's badass as hell. Thank you, Thomas Baxter. Thank you, Robert Beveridge. Thank you, Alan Correño Esquivel. Thank you, Jade Carter. Thank you, Jochen Conrad. Thank you, Xavier Doyon. Thank you, Alex Fox. Thank you, Dali Garcia. Thank you, James Zhao. Thank you, Sean McCartan. Thank you, Meredith May Nicholas. Thank you, Harshal Mystery. Thank you, Sky Orndon. Thank you, Enrique Moya Badano. Thank you, Daniel Ness. Thank you, Laurent Quinn. Thank you, Jason Quintana. Thank you, Timothy Russell. Thank you, Leon Schmidl. Thank you, Connor Schwab. Thank you, Leigh Sears. Thank you, Jamie Ray Sims. Thank you, Valerie Velamir. Thank you, Mael Wortman. Thank you, Andreas Borzek. Thank you, Khan Yilmaz. Thank you, Wakil Ahmed. Thank you, Mariam Sheriff. Thank you, Youngwoo Choi. Thank you, Juliette Campaign. Thank you, Santosh Kumar Day. Thank you, Scott M. Fedor. Thank you, Maxime Ferland. Thank you, Chris Gilmer. Thank you, so fast. Thank you, Frederick Grondin. Thank you, Terence Gulpin. Thank you, Carlota Gutierrez Pau. Thank you, Sandro Enriquez. Thank you, Andelina Holish. Thank you, Wan Ho. Thank you, Tan Kai Huai. Thank you, Minhei Kim. Thank you, Ret Kim. Thank you, Song Yong Kim. Thank you, Andrea Krupp. Thank you, Oh Song Kwon. Thank you, Francois Leduc. Thank you, Minjo Lee. Thank you, Nicolas Leroy. Thank you, Miriam Letourneau. Thank you, Amir Manavi. Thank you, Cheon Park. Thank you, Francis Parchiarelli. Thank you, Anthony Peck. Thank you, Emmerich Perrier. Thank you, Alice Pepuyol. Thank you, Renee Roy. Thank you, Veronique Sabourin. Thank you, Katie Savoy. Thank you, Rock Sophie. There we go. Thank you, Remy Stomp. Thank you, Solomon Ching Yong Wong. Thank you, Khalid Zaidan. Thank you, Boyana Zozinska. Thank you, Hassan Khan. Thank you, Gen Abiru. Thank you, Mashi Akiyama. Thank you, Marco Bordignon. Thank you, Chris Bauman. Thank you, Michael Chang. Thank you, Sylvia Chikoli. Thank you, Marlene Sirk. Thank you, Chris Clow. Thank you, Aubrey Deshen. Thank you, Ashish Dewan. Thank you, Madison Green. Thank you, Brian Insua. Thank you, Chris Gestico. Thank you, Christopher Django Johnston. Thank you, Sandros Kov. Thank you, Mark Kep. Thank you, Michael Holzer. Thank you, Luis Lima. Thank you, Debo Lipede. Thank you, Frida Lezin. Thank you, Julia C. Rita Manon. Thank you, Tara Mason. Thank you, Anna Yuto. Thank you, Andrew Monroe. Thank you, Julia Rugala. Thank you, Lucas Nunes. Thank you, Emrys Papila. Thank you, Guy Penwell. Thank you, Edward Randall. Thank you, Mike Ring. Thank you, Callum Ruddleston. This might be pronounced Yi, but I think it's Guy. I think it's in French. Yes. Thank you, Callum Ruddleston. Thank you, Cindy Sawfeld. Thank you, Marcel Schad. That's definitely wrong. Thank you, Eduardo Lalo Schmidtek. Lalo Salamanca. Thank you, Dylan Shaw. Thank you, Daniel Silva. Thank you, Daniel Copeland Smedile. Thank you, Ken Steele. Thank you, Siddhartan UK, or thank you, Siddhartan Ook. Thank you, Melanie Kate Wallace. Thank you, Indiana Wilson. Thank you, Enrico Zerbo. Thank you, Rachel Ajork. Thank you, Masato Arai. Thank you, Arpan Banerjee. Thank you, Mathieu Baudin. Thank you, Victoria Burns. Thank you, Samuel Buteau. Thank you, Yuting Chen. Thank you, Woojin Choi. Thank you, Jürgen Können. Thank you, Yonel De Los Santos. Thank you, Kishore Deore. Thank you, Noan Rahel Domer. Thank you, Colin Dorsers. Thank you, Samantha Fossado. Thank you, Guillaume Gossoron. Thank you, Tai Gokon. Thank you, Alvin Grado. Thank you, Jadine Ingram. Thank you, Daewon Yang. Thank you, Huang Hien Chong. Thank you, Gautam Kansara. Thank you, Hikong Kim. Thank you, Lubo Kirkov. Thank you, Anis Krieger. Thank you, Benoit Legros. Thank you, Inchong Lim. Thank you, Alexandre Mallier. Thank you, Caitlin Minatozaki. Thank you, Maxime Monette. Thank you, David Monfett. Thank you, Jonathan Moulin. Thank you, Priyank Parek. Thank you, Fabrice Patier. Thank you, Liam Pim. Thank you, Laura Fine Ramler. Thank you, Barnaby Robson. Another Barnaby. Thank you, Matt Rowe. Thank you, McSinger. MK Singer. I don't know. Thank you, Anna Seville. Thank you, Jello Seo. Thank you, Veronica Tello. Thank you, Corinne Teo. Thank you, Christopher Tulea. Thank you, Rui Shu. Thank you, Stephen Baum. Thank you, Martin Mirola. Thank you, Rishabh Shah. Thank you, Min Tech. Thank you, Alexander Atanasov. Thank you, Jordan Benning. Thank you, Ian Cope. Thank you, Christian Cunningham. Thank you, Fabian Dietz. I think my voice is getting tired. I feel like I'm speedrunning this because apparently this has been recording for like 2 hours, 26 minutes, which is a long ass time, and I want to go outside. But anyways, thank you, Fabian Dietz. I think I already thank you, but I'm thanking you again. Thank you, Matthew Dorazio. Thank you, Saskia Elliott. Thank you, Don Gao. Thank you, Ebru Bonul. Thank you, Arya Dari. Thank you, James Hoggood. Thank you, Stefan John Mari. Thank you, Dmitry Kariliak. Thank you, Mette Lokering. Thank you, Chi Jaja Lim. Thank you. Thank you, Kayim Lin. Thank you, Dangi Lo. Thank you, Asel Abisai Martinez. Wow, amazing. Thank you, Katie McCabe Sortini. Thank you, Joanna Migodzinska. Thank you, Andrew Osis. Thank you, Alexandros Papasozomenos. Thank you, Cecilia Piemontese. Thank you, Jose Pitera. Thank you, Leonard Schmidt. Thank you, Bernard Andreas Padas Fosa. Thank you, Stefano Strabla. Thank you, Jean-Yves Teye. Thank you, Oscar Tornin Casa. Thank you, Abdul Artunio. Thank you, David Valvona. Thank you, AJ Vargas. Thank you, David Vivaldini. Thank you, Daniel Azevedo. Thank you, Song Yong Bai. Thank you, Sylvie Bayon. Thank you, Negan Bayrami. Thank you, Beatrice Bulle. Thank you, Sergey Burdukov. Thank you, Ernest Garvich. Thank you, Jean-Simon Chabot. Thank you, Yi Son Kanchu. Thank you, Pauline Costani. Pauline. Thank you, Gabriel De Poisson. Thank you, Adam Dewhurst. Thank you, Florian Dubois. Thank you, Sophia Fessel. Thank you, Jerome Foucault. Thank you, Valerie George. Thank you, Peter Godden. Thank you, Eleanor Grace. Thank you, Maverick Han. Thank you, Hansen Yang. Thank you, Segwang Yang. Thank you, Seyon Zhang. Thank you, George Canaras. Thank you, Song Yong Kim. Thank you, Sonia Kit. Thank you, Christina Ratzert. Thank you, Jocelyn Mayer. Thank you, David Mann. Thank you, Vincenzo Maiola. Thank you, Jean-Patrick Mayer. Thank you, Nicholas Mitchell. Thank you, Thibault Senet. Thank you, David Osholtz. Thank you, Jennifer Franco Perez. Thank you, Valerie Pick. Thank you, Florence Piche Villeneuve. Another Villeneuve. Thank you, Eddie Bugsley. Thank you, April Ray. Thank you, Marc Olivier Simonu. Thank you, Julie Terrien. Thank you, Robert Tucker. Thank you, Javina Valentina. Thank you, Andy Weber. Thank you, Aman Christine Wong. Thank you, Lily SHU. Thank you, Song Yong Yu. Thank you, Yi Yun. Thank you, Michael Zemaitis. Thank you, Stephen Zhao. Thank you, Kartik Adepu. Ooh, that's close to a name that I wrote, but it's not correct spelling. Yeah. Thank you, James Albates. Yeah. Thank you, James Albates. Thank you, Jean Arenas. Thank you, Liam Barlow. Thank you, Jeff Botsitz. Thank you, Maxine Besner. Thank you, Diego Betancourt. Thank you, Alexander Bona. Reminds me of the WandaVision joke. Thank you, Federico Bonato. Thank you, Christopher Bozetto. Thank you, Tiago Cabrita. Thank you, Tadeusz Schmil. Thank you, Louis De Rocher. Thank you, Louis Dunley. Thank you, Sarah Escribano Sastre. Thank you, Miriam Ferrer. Thank you, Tizok Flores. Thank you, Ben Fowler. Thank you, Marcos Francos. Thank you, Christian Gumon. Thank you, Maxime Guillemin. Thank you, Adam Hopper. Thank you, Carolina Jimenez Garcia. Thank you, Oktawine Klosko. Thank you, Muzaffar Orkot. Thank you, Julian Correns. Thank you, Sebastian Kuchmeister. Thank you, Joran Lee. Thank you, Alex Zinan Yu. Thank you, Justin Long. Thank you, Matthew Makareth. Thank you, Gabriel Mandala. Thank you, Andrew Maynard. Thank you, Bradley McKay. Thank you, James McPhail. Thank you, Benin Mayer. Thank you, Alex Mortaza. Thank you, Emil Nidan. Thank you, Jean-Claude Noshi. Thank you, Dano Oshinesi. Thank you, Benjamin Pablo. Thank you, Anne Haluk. Thank you, Emma Peliciari. Thank you, Jacob Petrakos. Thank you, Francesco Polito. Thank you, Sandrino Pozezanach. Thank you, Mathieu Prezelin. Again, here's another one. Thank you, Sylvain Richard. Thank you, Richard Rodriguez. Thank you, Alexandra Ropek. Thank you, Andrea Sbabo. Thank you, Frederic Schmidt. Thank you, Ludovic Schwankron. Thank you, Sharif Shanawani. Thank you, Emily Shordon. Thank you, Maris Steckles. Thank you, Raina Stoller. Thank you, David Stopford. Thank you, Joseph Sopoli. Thank you, Heiko Solber. Thank you, Mike Terino. Thank you, Luca Vitali. Thank you, Nick Weber. Thank you, Wendy Harris Wu. Thank you, Mary Young. Thank you, Clement Yip. Thank you, Michelle Yu. Thank you, Patrick Zentis. Thank you, Samuel Armin. Thank you, Narvit Aurora. Narvnit Aurora. Thank you, Alonso Bocanegra. Thank you, Vincent Bolo. Thank you, Nadine Bozinovsky. Thank you, Mia Campbell. Thank you, Marc-Andre Carrier. Thank you, Minhui Chang. Thank you, Eleonora Donofrio. Thank you, Stefan Deganey. Thank you, Carlos Patrick De Leon. Thank you, Dave Duarte. Thank you, Rob Eckert. Thank you, Mohammed El Hakim. Thank you, Cedric Estevao. Thank you, Tom. Good enough. Good enough. Thank you, Niraj Engel. Thank you, Joel Jacques. Thank you, Jion. Thank you, Jeffrey Jin. Thank you, Jaewon Kim. Thank you, Min Young Kim. Thank you, Miles Lauritsen. Thank you, Bowman Lee. Thank you, Jenny Jong Lim. Thank you, Sharana Mapatuna. Thank you, Alex Martinez. Thank you, Jorge Armando Martinez Terran. Thank you, Jane Min. Thank you, Samuel Nichols. Thank you, Emily O'Brien. Thank you, Rikon Pandane. Thank you, Jackson Pomilo. Thank you, Stefan F. Podgier. Thank you, Jordan Potts. Thank you, Matthew Praveen. Thank you, Mangesh Rajwaid. Thank you, Rohan Sangeet. Thank you, Rahul Sharma. Thank you, Daljit Singh. Thank you, Mohan Singh. Thank you, Jim Steele. Thank you, Vikram Tyndale. Thank you, Seki Tang. Thank you, Haluk Tarkan. Thank you, Rachel Tay. Thank you, Eben Thomas. Thank you, Jerry Suryo Jariono. Thank you, David Tremblay. Thank you, Luis Felipe Vargas de Souza. Thank you, Mathieu Vezina. Thank you, Oliver Walter. Thank you, Rose Wang. Thank you, Jose Manuel Whale. Thank you, Hannah Fiona Yi. Thank you, Alexis Agrotis. Thank you, Philip Ecklis. Thank you, James P. Noon. Thank you, John Relosa. Thank you, Dane Rockingham. Thank you, George Silva Fortes. Thank you, Stephanie LaRusso. Thank you, Nicholas Centofanti. Thank you, Matt Armstrong. Thank you, Aaron Bookout. Thank you, Michael Andrew Carpenter. Thank you, Joe Cabellos. Thank you, Simon Chong. Thank you, Natasha David. Thank you, Jonathan Flores. Thank you, Aidan Frazier. Thank you, Jonathan Hobb. Thank you, Michael Rada. Thank you, Paul Hudson. Thank you, Michael Kennan. Thank you, Stephen King. Thank you, Christopher Kohler. Thank you, Alexander Leon. Thank you, Keith McGowan. Thank you, Emily Manheim. Thank you, Emerald May. Thank you, Brian Manley. Thank you, Juan Pablo Monroy. Thank you, Pierre Noam. Thank you, Alana Pickerel. Thank you, Grover Richardson. Thank you, Leticia Saldana. Thank you, Jeff W. Smith. Thank you, Kenneth Voss. Thank you, Lisa Wagner Wagener. Thank you, Christopher Whittle. Thank you, Campbell Winslow. Thank you, Gemma Canet. Thank you, Daniel Carlin. Thank you, Nicholas Canelopoulos. Thank you, Ashley Mears. Thank you, Martin Rosenkrantz. Damn, that was like the VFX artists and the VFX department. And I think it's the biggest one so far, because I think I started like page 60 something all the way to 139. That's insane. But anyways, now moving on to the stunt department. Thank you, Emma Ennis. Thank you, Tolga Cannon. Thank you, Mark Miley. Thank you, Elliot Hawks. Thank you, Kevin Lyons. Thank you, Mark Stanton Kelly. Thank you, Aldonio Danny Freitas. Thank you, Martin Wild. Thank you, Johnny Wu. Thank you, David Collum. Thank you, Guillermo Alonso. Thank you, Scott Hellier. Thank you, Gaunt Weisinger. Thank you, Chloe Bruce. Thank you, Harvey Taylor. Thank you, Mark Godelman. Thank you, Tim Davies. Thank you, Mark Archer. Thank you, Matthew K. Thank you, Leo Woodruff. Thank you, Kay Anik. Thank you, Gary Arthurs. Another Gary. This is the fourth one. Still wrong spelling. Thank you, Alexander Korn. Thank you, Neil Stoddart. Thank you, Ashley Beck. Thank you, Scott Brady. Thank you, David Chong. Thank you, Nick Chopping. Thank you, Billy Clements. Thank you, Jason Curl. Thank you, Andrews Davidanis. Thank you, Dan Houston. Thank you, Ryan Palmer. Thank you, Laurent Plancel. Thank you, John Street. Thank you, Matthew Bell. Thank you, Mark Rodriguez Bennett. Thank you, Adrian Brendel. Thank you, Marvin Campbell. Thank you, Shaban Colin. Thank you, Clive Goebel. Thank you, Robbie Keane. Thank you, Joe Kennard. Thank you, Maurice Lee. Thank you, Sunny Lewis. Thank you, Oleg Bodobin. Thank you, Kieran Quest. Thank you, Marcus Shake Chef. Thank you, Mensana Damakloe. Thank you, Nathan Wharton. Thank you, Jeremy Smith. Thank you, Christian Cole. Thank you, Johnny James. Thank you, Peter Alberti. Thank you, Frank Baker. Thank you, Anna Benton. Thank you, Rob Bowen. Thank you, Adam Collins. Thank you, Tom Carly Ellis. Thank you, Darren Ellie. Thank you, Bradley Farmer. Thank you, Darren John Farmer. Thank you, Tom Hatt. Thank you, All Holland. Thank you, James Horan. Thank you, Aaron Jameson. Thank you, Paul Joseph. Thank you, Felix Leach. Thank you, Richard Leggett. Thank you, Victor Leon. Thank you, Sarah Lachlan. Thank you, John Nursall. Thank you, Oliver Parsons. Thank you, Charles Ramsey. Thank you, John Sharp. Thank you, Rhiannon Scarrett. Thank you, John Slayer. Thank you, Peter Sycamore. Thank you, Chris Waite. Thank you, Paul Bailey. Thank you, Elliot Collins. Thank you, Finley Coxon Smith. Thank you, Talila Craig. Thank you, Mike Denton. Thank you, Rachel Evelyn. Thank you, Luke Gomez. Thank you, Anthony Knight. Thank you, Carl McGee. Another Carl. Cool. Thank you, Darren Miley. Thank you, Boris Martinez. Thank you, Christopher Painter. Thank you, Jimmy Partis. Thank you, Adam Smith. Thank you, Roy Taylor. Thank you, Gordon Alexander. Thank you, Lucy Allen. Thank you, Eddie Beckett. Thank you, Thomas Billings. Thank you, Andrew Burford. Thank you, Michael Birch. Thank you, Craig Canning. Thank you, Yusuf Chaudhry. Thank you, Kelly Dent. Thank you, Will DeVee. Thank you, Dom Dumares. Thank you, Sam Durrani. Thank you, Andrew Eady. Thank you, Paul Edmondson. Thank you, David Foreman. Thank you, Sophian Francis. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Grace Franzel. Thank you, Leon Gabinson. The stunt double for Diego Luna in one episode. I think it's the on a bike stunt double. So the episode where, yeah, I think I know it. But anyways, that's kind of cool. I forgot where I was, but I'll go on from him. From Paul. Thank you, Paul Edmondson. Thank you, David Foreman. Thank you, Sophian Francis. Thank you, Grace Franzel. Thank you, Leon Gabadon. Thank you, Martin Gordon. Thank you, Ryan Green. Thank you, James Grogan. Thank you, Clayton Grover. Thank you, Richard Hall. Thank you, George Harris. Thank you, Stefan Healy. Thank you, Matt Hermanston. Thank you, Jamie Carrots. Thank you, Michael Legan. Thank you, Xavier Lake. Thank you, Alan Leong. Thank you, Lucas Long. Thank you, Guy List. Thank you, Kai Martin. Thank you, Tina Moscow. Thank you, Kim McGarity. Thank you, Nick McKinless. Thank you, Errol Mehmet. Thank you, Stefan Mihaleche. Thank you, Chris Morrison. Thank you, Theo Morton. Thank you, Benos Noble. Thank you, Jake Osborne. Thank you, Thomas Paredes. Thank you, Ace Ruel. Thank you, Louis Sams. Thank you, Tim Sanders. Thank you, Jody Saunders. Thank you, Jake Shawcross. Thank you, George Surrey. Thank you, Richard Varon Townsend. Thank you, Ross Upton. Thank you, Tony Van Silva. Thank you, Vincent Wang. Thank you, Marcus White. Thank you, Lewis Young. Thank you, James Apps. Thank you, Jessica Barfoot. Thank you, Adam Bauman. Thank you, Nelly Borges. Thank you, Iski Faye. Thank you, James Harris. Thank you, Varpu Croncombe. Thank you, Nikita Mitchell. Thank you, James Ofield. Thank you, Chris Painter. Thank you, Anthony Skimshire. Thank you, Anna Stevenson. Thank you, Sanj Surati. Oh, and thank you, Sanj Surati. Okay. Thanks, stunt department. Moving on to camera and electrical department. We're on page 150, so over halfway there, of course, which is good. Anyway, so yeah, the cameras and electrical department. Thank you, George Clifford. Thank you, Matthew Klein. Thank you, Alex Oldhard. Thank you, Chris Delamore. Thank you, Chris Delamore. Thank you, Russell Diamond. Thank you, Andy Levitt. Thank you, Oliver Smith. Thank you, Ian Struthers. Thank you, Giles Taylor. Thank you, Colin Townsend. Thank you, Ryan King. Thank you, Lee Daniels. Thank you, Haley Benoit. Thank you, Neil Ashton. Thank you, Ryan S. Adams. Thank you, David Allen. Thank you, Dominique Aronen. Thank you, Michael Barham. Thank you, Cameron Berry. Thank you, Ryan Besson. Thank you, Christopher B. Broomfield. Thank you, Molly Ray Burkham. Thank you, Tony Kaya. Thank you, Daniel Cato. Thank you, Billy Clifford. Thank you, Jarvis Coxwell. Thank you, Stephen Delahunt. Thank you, Chris Dickinson. Thank you, Harry Elvidge. Thank you, Matt England. Thank you, Simon Finney. Thank you, Oliver Flanagan. Thank you, Ross Grimshaw. Thank you, Neil Hawkins. Thank you, Daniel Howard. Thank you, James Huxley. Thank you, Russell Kennedy. Thank you, Francis King. Thank you, Jody Knight. Thank you, Marina Lewin. Thank you, David Littlejohns. Thank you, Jesse Land. Thank you, Johannes Lochman. Another Johannes. Thank you, John Marzano. Thank you, Martina Massime. Thank you, Dan McCormick. Thank you, Tom McGoldrick. Thank you, Ed Miller. Thank you, Matthew Newton. Thank you, Brett Parham. Thank you, Gary Parham. Thank you, John Paxton. Thank you, Tyler Penfold. Thank you, Jess Pezzett. Thank you, Lester Plant. Thank you, Pavel Pollack. Thank you, Henry Reese. Thank you, Duncan Rydell. Thank you, Harvey Sebastian Reagan. Thank you, Gordon Segrove. Thank you, Adrian Stevens. Thank you, Jay Stevens. Thank you, Owen Varley. Thank you, Anna Viller. Thank you, De Willer. Thank you, Jonathan Wright. Thank you, Amy Wyatt. Thank you, Alexander Bojic Aguiar. Thank you, Richard Gordon Charles Anderson. Thank you, Callum Bampton. Thank you, Glenn Bellis. Thank you, Nia Berry. Thank you, Dave Blinko. Thank you, Max Boone. Thank you, Ryan Carton. Thank you, Aaron Paul Champion. Thank you, Bennett Clark. Thank you, Poppy Conway. Thank you, Ashley Cook. Thank you, Alex Coverley. Thank you, Joao De Pola. Thank you, Alfie Diamond. Thank you, Tara Dreyfus. Thank you, Dan Dykes. Thank you, Samuel Alvin. Thank you, Harvey Faulkner. Thank you, Richard Follett. Thank you, Matthew Fox. Thank you, Luke Harris. Thank you, Dean Hitchcock. Thank you, Terry Hudson. Thank you, Henry Holm. Thank you, Alvaro Hurtado Martinez. Thank you, George Jenkins. Thank you, Ishmael Jimenez. Thank you, Stavros Kyriakou. Thank you, Callum Longstaff. Thank you, Sam Luca. Thank you, Mark Jason Mayer. Thank you, Paul Moore. Thank you, Andy Monday. Thank you, Tom North Davies. Thank you, Jock Norton. Thank you, Bel Pomano. Thank you, Kofi Richards. Thank you, Luke Ridgewall. Thank you, Marlon Roach. Thank you, Joe Russell. Thank you, Raquel Sacristan. Thank you, William Sheffield. Thank you, Jonathan Spencer. Thank you, Francesca Shez Stone. Thank you, Mustafa Tiebkan. Thank you, Jan Urbanski. Thank you, Josh White. Thank you, Jamie Kwan. Thank you, Chris Bottensby. Thank you, Cecily Bedner. Thank you, Sean Ipfung Chong. Thank you, Phoebe Callum. Thank you, Vinay Kernanet. Thank you, Max Elliott Lovell. Thank you, Andy Lowe. Thank you, Nathan Porter. Thank you, David Sidwig. Thank you, Daniel Stones. Thank you, Mark Sullivan. Thank you, Zoe Whitaker. Thank you, Matthew Temple. Thank you, Dean Heinskopf. Thank you, John Hunter. Thank you, Dan Lake. Thank you, Jonathan England. Thank you, Andrew George. Thank you, Andre Durazi. Thank you, Daniel Adis. Thank you, David Ashby. Thank you, Jack Harrison Knott. Thank you, Charlie Paddock. Thank you, Chris Stones. Thank you, Ben Wilson. Thank you, Richard Bradbury. Thank you, Natasha Larkin. Thank you, Alfie Slater. Thank you, John Antil. Thank you, Martin Cox. Thank you, Matthew Gasper. Thank you, Joseph Harridge Noel. Thank you, Neil McConville. Thank you, James Perry. Thank you, George Brenton. Thank you, Guillermo de la Dehesa. Thank you, Carl Donnelly. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Nick Murray. Thank you, Ian Kino Sanchez. Thank you, Chris Bain. Thank you, Dave Hamilton Green. Thank you, Lewis Morgan. Thank you, Stephen Osborne. Thank you, Gianpiero Bottieri. Thank you, Jonathan Tomlin. Thank you, Derek Walker. Thank you, Danny Cullingham. Thank you, Simon Moore. Thank you, Larry Hurt. Thank you, Adam Millard. Thank you, Elliot Sebastian Reagan. Thank you, Andy Thompson. Thank you, Matthew Fay. Thank you, Josh Allen. Thank you, Josh Ferguson. Thank you, Carl Gouf. Another Carl. Thank you, Alistair Holloway. Thank you, Dean Murray. Thank you, Amir F. Qureshi. Thank you, Ben Raven. Thank you, Julian Roth. Thank you, Mirko Benarelli. Thank you, Lawrence Becksmith. Thank you, Johnny Boomer. Thank you, Oliver Dunford. Thank you, Esteban Gimbelevich. Thank you, Bonnie Piercy. Thank you, Julian Grobner. Thank you, Matthew J. Hicks. Thank you, Gabriel Mans. Thank you, Shafi Ole. Thank you, Mitchell Payne. Thank you, Nicholas Randall. Thank you, Nuria Server Lorica. Thank you, Pixie Shea. Thank you, Philip List Shipsy. Thank you, Adrian Swan. Thank you, Lily Taylor. Thank you, Sean Wright. Thank you, Evelina Siobaite. Thank you, Kian Altman. Yeah. Thank you, Emin Atulgan. Thank you, Jacob Berry. Thank you, Jacob Scott. Thank you, Harvey Cohen. Thank you, Richard Copeman. Thank you, Kai Corfield. Thank you, Anthony Downs. Thank you, Francois Erb. Thank you, Alex Finlayson. Thank you, Joshua Igadaro. Thank you, Morgan Lewis. Thank you, Luke Lloyd. Thank you, Alex McCormick. Thank you, George Peddle. Thank you, Simon Purdy. Thank you, Jacob Urgala. Thank you, Jake Sheldon. Thank you, Adam Shell. Thank you, Johnny Stillwell. Thank you, George Stock. Thank you, Steve Balls. Thank you, Josh Montoro Bales. Thank you, Matt Borum. Thank you, George Calmet. Thank you, Dearbell Collins. Thank you, Joshua Davies. Thank you, Justin Hawkins. Thank you, Jordy Martin Vega. Thank you, Robbie Mayo. Thank you, Lewis McInnes. Thank you, Rashad Patel. Thank you, Steve Kwan. Thank you, Richard B. Sean. Thank you, Jonathan Tirune. Thank you, Christian Trio. Thank you, Taylor Clark. Thank you, Charlotte Charlotte Haid. Thank you, Ryan March. And thank you, Richard Osborne. Now, for the animation department. Oh, it's quite small. It's crazy. But I'm on page 165 and been recording for 2 hours and 54 minutes. What the hell? Okay. Okay, animation department. Thank you, Desiree Maduri. Thank you, Ryan Sloman. Thank you, Wesley Chandler. Thank you, Rodrigo Guerrero. Thank you, Ramirez Madi. Thank you, Anindia Moksad. And thank you, James Hickey. Wow, it's quite short, but I imagine it's because VFX did some of the other stuff. Now, the casting department. Thank you, Terry Douglas. Thank you, Sasha Garrett. Thank you, Julina Barber. Thank you, Lauren Harrell. Thank you, Carla Hall. Thank you, Sarah Sebria. Thank you, Mark Dalmau. Thank you, Raul Diaz Prieto. Thank you, Mireya Lara. Thank you, Matilda Snodgrass. Thank you, Celia Champion. Okay, nice. Thank you. Now for costume and wardrobe department. Thank you, Melon Anderson. Thank you, Meg Brittle. Thank you, Valeria Cantelli. Thank you, Ellen Conrad. Thank you, Felicity Goldsworthy. Thank you, Katie Hudson. Thank you, Robin Lawrence. Thank you, Tallulah Mason. Thank you, Cecil Shills. Thank you, Robert James Sutherland. Thank you, Grace Taylor Shaw. Thank you, Poppy Lees. I almost said Lace. Thank you, Matilda Southcutt. Thank you, Eloise Park. Thank you, Pauline Bedeguri. Thank you, Liz Herring. Thank you, Jackie Woody. Thank you, Shirley Nervin. Thank you, Katie O'Farrell. Thank you, Carly Andrews. Thank you, Mark A. Bradford. Thank you, Sylvain Champion. Thank you, Matt Chemain. Thank you, Julia Cheney. Thank you, Victoria Conte. Thank you, Errol Davies. Thank you, Diana Denisova. Thank you, William Evans. Thank you, Lucy Page. Thank you, Sarah Faye. Thank you, Francoise Farcode. Thank you, Lily Gibbon McGrady. Thank you, Thank you, Eve Herbert. Thank you, Kevin Hunter. Thank you, Stephen Kill. Thank you, Twan Lentjes. Thank you, Nadia Merabti. Thank you, Bethany Morton. Thank you, Cora Prazeres. Thank you, Andrei Rebovichev. Thank you, Nicola Sandford. Thank you, Christopher Schubert. Thank you, Emily Rose Spreadborough. Thank you, Leo Tyler. Thank you, Kate Wakefield. Thank you, Charlotte Louise Ward. Thank you, Latricia Aparicio. Thank you, Nikki Barron. Thank you, Manuel Bonillo. Thank you, Emma Burnand. Thank you, Archie Campbell. Thank you, Emily Chung. Thank you, Eve Collins. Thank you, Alba Costa. Thank you, Jessica Curtis. Thank you, Richard Davies. Thank you, Alice Driscoll. Thank you, John Dunn. Thank you, Pilar Escudero. Thank you, Esther SB. Thank you, Paula Fallardo. Thank you, Leanne Fry. Thank you, Rosa Garija. Thank you, Lou Girones. Girones. Thank you, Lydia Hughes. Thank you, Sky Everson. Thank you, Laura Johnson. Thank you, Sebastia Laporte. Thank you, Betty Lee. Thank you, Ines Liverato. Thank you, Anna Lorca. Thank you, Callum Marshall. Thank you, Vanessa Martin. Thank you, Alma Martinez. Thank you, Maria Luz Mata. Thank you, Isabel Matesans. Thank you, David McLaughlin. Thank you, Charlotte Morinay. Thank you, Craig Morrison. Thank you, Caroline Nichols Winston. Thank you, Sorsha Nifline. Thank you, Irene Oates. Thank you, Santiago Palacois. Thank you, Stephanie Potter. Thank you, Panciano Prol. Thank you, Lucy Hugh Bevan. Thank you, Macarena Ribera. Thank you, Virginia Riesco. Thank you, Ruth Sempede. Thank you, Oscar Sway. Thank you, Amber Rose Thompson. Thank you, Sarah Tiffin. Thank you, Harriet Town. Thank you, Raul Vargas. Thank you, Natalie Vega. Thank you, Naria Vincente. Thank you, Norman Walsh. Thank you, Mikolai Wakowski. Thank you, Joshua Webb. Thank you, Corina Kennedy White. Thank you, Terry Biggs. Thank you, Gary Hayes. Gary number 5. Thank you, Yolanda Piombino. Thank you, David Ball. Thank you, John Laurie. Thank you, Kieran Stone. Thank you, Auntie Delaney. Thank you, Ava Farkas. Thank you, Noella Hilton. Thank you, Jenny Jarvis. Thank you, Terry Archer. Thank you, Maria Angelis Camacho. Thank you, Freya Edmondson. Thank you, Stephen Mead. Thank you, Sakina Baker. Thank you, Olivia DeLune. Thank you, Lily Gisburn. Thank you, Amber Brabant. Thank you, Chris Byrne. Thank you, Ivo Rovene. Thank you, Sophie Perry. Thank you, Alice Speak. Thank you, Ksenia Vashenko. Thank you, Gemma Nicole Atkinson. Thank you, Charlotte Rose Armstrong. Thank you, Leanne Gedres. Thank you, Lorianne Grice. Thank you, Ella Lloyd. Thank you, Anthony McCartan. Thank you, Laura Smith. Thank you, Beg Bowden. Thank you, Amy Consdale. Thank you, Rhiannon Noki. Thank you, Katie Taylor. Thank you, Catherine Woolston. Thank you, Mike Ring. Thank you, Patricio Gulino. Thank you, Carla Linas. Thank you, Simona Maisano. Thank you, Marjo Colnard. Thank you, Liz Crossman. Thank you, Samantha Ilden. Thank you, Callum Martin. Thank you, Nuria Pascual Anduyar. Thank you, Pilar Damirat. Thank you, Lily Coveney. Thank you, John Moss. Thank you, Alfie Bones. Thank you, Poppy Ridgway. And that's it. And now for the editorial department. Editors, I guess. Yeah, I think. Editorial department. Thank you, Jesus Girdle. Thank you, Tristan Hay. Thank you, Alexandra Caranasos. Thank you, Michael McKnight. Thank you, Hannah McLaughlin. Thank you, Jason T. Morrow. Thank you, Cody Vandenberg. Thank you, Samantha Wallace. Thank you, Kat Easterbrook. Thank you, Miles Anderson. Thank you, Holly Laura Byrne. Thank you, Victoria Burrows. Thank you, Hugo Cantrell. Thank you, Laura Chowdhury. Thank you, Aliso David Ciantini. Thank you, Alex Gascoigne. Thank you, Simon Giblin. Thank you, Lucy Hayworth. Thank you, Alec Holroyd Deverton. Thank you, Todd Kleparski. Thank you, Dexter Kong. Thank you, Kenny Lee. Thank you, Liana Mansell. Thank you, Tom Matthews. Thank you, Max Ethan Miller. Thank you, Laura Mountford. Thank you, Michelle Pierce. Thank you, Michael Popich. Thank you, Holly Remit. Thank you, Denny Salas. Thank you, Jenny Jane Webb. Thank you, Maria Alonso Arroyo. Thank you, Charbel Bourdain. Thank you, Gary Dion Bayer. That's Gary number 6. Thank you, Holly Bayer. Thank you, Holly Charge. Thank you, Anson Chang. Thank you, Thomas Cruz. Thank you, Julian Debra. Thank you, Ina Huber. Thank you, Carla Rojas Tarazon. Thank you, Elise Woolbridge. Thank you, Lincoln Witter. Thank you, Jean-Clément Soret. Thank you, Marta Balagamba. Thank you, Pilar Gomez Igbo. Thank you, James Barham. Thank you, Craig Walters. Thank you, Miguel E. Rabagliato. Thank you, Nina Anand. Thank you, Craig Ferreira. Thank you, Istvan V. Molnar. Thank you, Inigo Baron. Thank you, Gemma Bourne. And thank you, Ella Nicole Bourne. From the editorial department. Location management. Thank you, Flynn Berry. Thank you, Jean Gabochi. Thank you, Richard Hill. Thank you, Henry Jepson. Thank you, Stephanie Andrew. Thank you, Sophia Humlin. Thank you, Micah Hencliffe. Thank you, Jason Allen. Thank you, Dylan Beagley. Thank you, Joanna Beckett. Thank you, Charlie Bourbon. Thank you, Alex Chakraborty. Thank you, Shores Fearge. Thank you, Millie Gladwin. Thank you, Ziggy Gray. Thank you, John Hills. Thank you, Zach Jarvis. Thank you, Carolyn O'Reilly. Thank you, Fergus Oliver. Thank you, Shelley Quirk. Thank you, Jojo Warner. Thank you, Edward Bottenheim. Thank you, Ricky Cruz. Thank you, Alice Doughty. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alice Doughty. Thank you, Alex Escriva. Thank you, Ben O. Thank you, Jose Miguel Santa Cruz Cortez. Thank you, Melissa Sorel. Thank you, Jordi Torrens Heppel. Thank you, Yanira de Armas Tosco. Thank you, Rafa Via Belda. Thank you, Kat Butley. Thank you, Neve Flockard. Thank you, Issa Humlin. Thank you, Liam Irwin. Thank you, Rosie Cano. Thank you, Jack Cooper. Thank you, Max Harper. Thank you, Paulie McCluskey. Thank you, Ben Sanderson. Thank you, Duncan Sharp. Thank you, Tom Woodstock. Thank you, Kerry Brown. Thank you, Jacob Crow. Thank you, Fiona Valentine. Thank you, Eddie Adekoya. Thank you, Harvey Cohen. Thank you, Ewan Gerthy. Thank you, Will Perkins. Thank you, Mark Ray. Thank you, Sheridan Morley. Thank you, Jack Barry. Thank you, Matthew Fletcher. Thank you, Phoebe Flynn. Thank you, Sarah Lane. Thank you, Imola Unger. Thank you, Jess Waluga. Thank you, Francesco Colucci. Thank you, Flora Kinch-War. Thank you, Pecco Povedano. Thank you, Paul F. Ryan. Thank you, Christina Tapia. Thank you, Tayeb Mahmoud. Thank you, Aisha Samuel. Thank you, Joe Litch. Thank you, Zoe Newton Kilsney. Kisley. Thank you, Tom Smart. Okay, music department. Music department, we have Chris. Thank you, Chris Barron. Thank you, Reed Chiba. Thank you, Alison Dodds. Thank you, Matt Dunkley. Thank you, John Finkley. Thank you, Jeff Foster. Thank you, Richard George. Thank you, Jenny Goshawk. Thank you, Tracy Holloway. Thank you, Martin Humby. Thank you, Peter Lale. Thank you, Everton Nelson. Thank you, Odile Olagnon. Thank you, Mary Scully. Thank you, Mary Watkins. Thank you. What the hell? Thank you, Richard Watkins. Thank you, Tony Wallard. Thank you, Chris Worsey. Thank you, Sophie Harris. Thank you, Marianne Haynes. Thank you, Andy Wood. Thank you, Natalia Bonner. Thank you, Nicholas Brittle. Thank you, Ian Burge. Thank you, David Hay. Thank you, Patrick Kiernan. Thank you, Rick Costa. Thank you, Richard Bissell. Thank you, Jonathan Evans Jones. Thank you, Tom Bigod Smith. Thank you, Dave Stewart. Thank you, Ian Thomas. Thank you, Lawrence Unglis. Thank you, Lucy Whaley. Thank you, Ian Humphreys. Thank you, Catherine Jenkinson. Thank you, Steve Mayer. Thank you, Kate Musker. Thank you, Dan West. Thank you, Max Bailey. Thank you, Nigel Black. Thank you, Benjamin Buckton. Thank you, Bozidar Vukotic. Thank you, Fiona Bonds. Thank you, Alex Ferguson. Thank you, Claire Hayes. Thank you, Rob Ferrer. Thank you, David Hewley. Thank you, Jack Moles. Thank you, Martin Owen. Thank you, Christopher Ruskis. Thank you, Kathy Thompson. Thank you, Barry Clemens. Thank you, Frank Ricotti. Thank you, Corinne Bailey. Thank you, Philip Cobb. Thank you, Helen Kiminja. Thank you, Johnny Byers. Thank you, Paul Clavers. Thank you, Dave Elliott. Thank you, Francis Kefford. Thank you, Michael McCoy. Thank you, Rowan McIntosh. Thank you, Adri Mena. Thank you, Frank Moon. Thank you, Eve Morris. Thank you, Julian Poole. Thank you, John Prestige. Thank you, Jedidiah Rimmel. Thank you, Jenny Sasha. Thank you, Sarah Sexton. Thank you, Tom Coath. Thank you, Rebecca Croshaw. Thank you, Grace Davidson. Thank you, Adamo Di Giorgio. Thank you, Felipe Guterres. Thank you, Maxwell Karmazin. Thank you, Paul Kimber. Thank you, Paul Kimber. Thank you, Andrew Lembo. Thank you, Tyson Lovinsky. Thank you, Anne Belby. Thank you, Emil Chakalov. Thank you, Sue Dench. Thank you, Byron Fulcher. Thank you, Kathy Gowers. Thank you, Rachel Launders. Thank you, Dorina Markov. Thank you, John Moles. Thank you, Mark Nightingale. Thank you, Alexi Watkins. Thank you, Alexander Bornstein. Thank you, Booker White. Thank you, Christian Barraclough. Thank you, Jeremy Isaac. Thank you, Ollie Langford. Thank you, Adrian Bradbury. Thank you, Richard Cookson. Thank you, Philip Eastop. Thank you, Melissa Farrell Wright. Thank you, Perry Montague Mason. Thank you, Rupert Ring. Thank you, Nikki Sweeney. Thank you, Paul Wiley. Thank you, David Daniels. Thank you, Caroline Dearly. Thank you, Tim Gill. Thank you, Bill Lockhart. Thank you, Owen Slade. Thank you, Clive Howard. Thank you, Lucy Shaw. Thank you, Nick Korth. Thank you, Vicky Matthews. Thank you, Matthew Ward. Thank you, Debbie Woodup. Thank you, Stephen Williams. Thank you, Phil Woods. Thank you, Fiona Winning. Thank you, Annie Belby. Thank you, Nicholas Bootyman. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Kathy Bradshaw. Thank you, David Juritz. Thank you, Tom Kemp. Thank you, Nicolette Cool. Thank you, Gianluca Massimo. Thank you, Kieran McCabe. Thank you, David Piat. Thank you, Frank Schaefer. Thank you, Michael Trainer. Thank you, Jonathan Tunnell. Thank you, Jake Walker. Thank you, Jonathan Williams. Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris Allen. Thank you, Mark Baker. Thank you, Magnus Johnston. Thank you, Lydia Northcott. Thank you, Ed Tarrant. Thank you, Julian Tare. Thank you, Edward Servenka. Thank you, Ben Holm. Thank you, Kate Moore. Thank you, Matthew Barrow. Thank you, Nick Cooper. Thank you, Di Manuel. Thank you, Claire Fenimore. Thank you, Kirsty Mangan. Thank you, Steve Morris. Thank you, Karen Jones. Thank you, Emma Black. Thank you, Charlie Brown. Thank you, Rebecca Carrington. Thank you, Ben Chappelle. Thank you, Sarah Damery Williams. Thank you, Beatrix Lovejoy. Thank you, Andy Parker. Thank you, Robert Smithson. Thank you, Juliette Welchman. Thank you, Warren Zielinski. Thank you, Timothy Amherst. Thank you, Lizzie Ball. Thank you, Ian Bolton. Thank you, Sue Briscoe. Thank you, Ben Creasy. Thank you, James Douglas. Thank you, Jonathan Durant. Thank you, Richard Edwards. Thank you, James Fountain. Thank you, Katie Furmanska. Thank you, Morgan Goff. Thank you, Gillian Haddo. Thank you, Ayako Holder. Thank you, Dave Lane. Thank you, Paul Livingston. Thank you, Pauline Lowsbury. Thank you, Andy Marshall. Thank you, Amos Miller. Thank you, Trian Milner. Thank you, Phil Munns. Thank you, Brian O'Kane. Thank you, Sarah Pullis. Thank you, Ian Rathbone. Thank you, William Schofield. Thank you, Casey Stone. Thank you, Eloise Fleur Tom. Thank you, Mike Thompson. Thank you, John Thurgood. Thank you, Tom Whaley. Thank you, John Anderson. Thank you, Ashley Andrew Jones. Thank you, Chris Barrett. Thank you, Diego Insertis. Thank you, Gavin McNaughton. Thank you, Anna Noakes. Thank you, Jake Parker. Thank you, Nick Rodwell. Thank you, Steve Russell. Thank you, Neil Wilkinson. Thank you, Simon Benson. Thank you, Julia Graham. Thank you, Rebecca Horden. Thank you, Martin Jackson. Thank you, Daniel Newell. Thank you, Andy Task. Thank you, Hetty Snell. Thank you, Beth Simons. Thank you, Anne de Renee. Thank you, Ben Parry. Thank you, Brandon Roberts. Thank you, Aaron Azunda Akubo. Thank you, Daniel Bates. Thank you, Mark Bosey. Thank you, Richard Bronskill. Thank you, David Cuthbert. Thank you, Matthew Draper. Thank you, Paul Edmund Davies. Thank you, Fiona Fulton. Thank you, Evelyn Garcia. Thank you, Claire Jeffers. Thank you, Janie Miller. Thank you, Dan Newell. Thank you, Paul Padfield. Thank you, Roland Sutherland. Thank you, Corina Sylvester. Thank you, Chloe Vincent. Thank you, Byron Wallen. Thank you, Claire Wickers. Thank you, Amelia Zakrevska. Thank you, Katie Hill. Thank you, Amy Liddon. Thank you, Freya Parry. Thank you, Imogen Parry. Thank you, Clara Sanabras. Thank you, Melanie Sanders. Thank you, Rachel Bolt. Thank you, Clifton Harrison. Thank you, Roger Lindley. Thank you, Alan Wiley. And that's it. Wow. Script and continuity department. We are almost on page 200, so that's really exciting. And it's been recording for yeah. Anyways, so the script and continuity department. What do you mean continuity? Like continuity in the Star Wars lore? I don't know. Probably just that the script makes sense after each episode or something. I don't know. But anyways, from the script and continuity department, thank you, David Gervin. Thank you, Helene Osthausen. Thank you, Tom Duthie. Thank you, Brioni Farn. Thank you, Andrea Grigoras. Thank you, Avgerinos Karadimas. Thank you, Tom Monroe. Thank you, Laurelyn Howie. Thank you, Norina McKay. Thank you, Emily Richardson. Thank you, Nora Bale Borkenvink. Thank you, Irene Jalko. Thank you, Angelica Priscello. Thank you, Janet Kellogg. Thank you, Ada Stakura. Thank you, Mary Lacey. Thank you, Izzy Searle. Thank you, Katrina Itabor. Okay. Nice. Now the transportation department. We're on page 200, so there's 24 to go. And I still have energy, but I just feel like I need to close my eyes. And yeah. All right. Anyways, so transportation department. Adam Shaw 4x4. Okay, that's just a driver. Thank you, Adam Shaw 4x4. Thank you, Adam Shaw. Anyways, thank you, Ashley Isaac. Thank you, Lee Esga. Thank you, David Rosenbaum Jr. Thank you, Matthew Sampson. Thank you, Christina Lozano. Thank you, Roy McGibbon. Thank you, Juan Diego Mora. That's another Juan. Thank you, Miguel Munoz Castillo. Thank you, Simon Fraser-Rowe. Thank you, Simon Hudnott. Thank you, Peter Trotman. Thank you, Glenn Musto. Thank you, Nick Golodny. Thank you, Caroline Trainer Boney. Thank you, Emma Savin. Thank you, Nicole Shaw. So, yeah, that's all right. Additional crew. Thank you, Rob Beggs. Thank you, David W. Collins. So that's okay. Thank you, Dion Bowes. Thank you, James Hunter. Thank you, John Hill. Thank you, Nick Kane. Thank you, Matt Martin. Thank you, Marcus Mills. Thank you, Steve Morphew. Thank you, Biola Olagbedi. Thank you, Kyle Rodri. Thank you, Claudia Galindian. Thank you, Taylor Hawthorne. Thank you, Harvey Diak. Thank you, Alethea Garris. Thank you, Althena Sammy. Thank you, James Thank you, Scott Atkins. Thank you, Joseph Barman. Thank you, Nadim Beg. Thank you, Tom Besselink. Thank you, Jess Bevan. Thank you, Tom Bromhead. Thank you, Reese Broughton. Thank you, John A. Bosenberg. Thank you, Hugo Cantrell. Thank you, Ren Cassidy. Thank you, Mika Coburn. Thank you, Courtney Coker. Thank you, Eleanor Coleman. Thank you, David Collins. Thank you, Daljit Colthorne. Thank you, Jacqueline Crockett. Thank you, Katie Curti. Thank you, Lucy Davis. Thank you, Matthew Denton. Thank you, Robin Atkin Dowes. Thank you, Laura Evans. Thank you, Miles A. Fletcher. Thank you, Kimiko Fox. Thank you, Anthony Frederick. Thank you, Daisy Kirosh. Thank you, Victoria Griffin. Thank you, Carrie Henu. Thank you, Rachel Hopkins. Thank you, Eleanor Hop. Thank you, Caroline Horton. Thank you, Barry Hurley. Thank you, Mary Hyde Watt. Thank you, Carl Jordan. Thank you, Neil Kellerhouse. Thank you, Michelle Kennedy. Thank you, Peter Levin. Thank you, Sam Manatee. Thank you, Ricardo Mellis. Thank you, Maudie Merchant. Thank you, Darcy Milner. Thank you, Will Nash. Thank you, Paula J. Newman. Thank you, Jeffrey Odell. Thank you, Tracy Parsons. Thank you, Tamas Pataki. Thank you, Jacques Portiger. Thank you, Moira Quirk. Thank you, Barry Rennick. Thank you, Alex Reynolds. Thank you, Chris Ruse. Thank you, Helen Sadler. Thank you, Dan Sasaki. Thank you, Andy Scott. Thank you, Jordan Short. Thank you, Cassie Simpe Asante. Thank you, Helen Smitherman. Thank you, Nicholas Snell. Thank you, Sam Sorby. Thank you, Julian Stone. Thank you, Phil Swarstak. Thank you, Victorine Domafo. Thank you, Josefina van Leuven. Thank you, Daisy Watt. Thank you, Kyle Wetton. Thank you, Ricky Wolcott. Thank you, Susie Wilson. Thank you, Matthew Wolf. Thank you, Ella Wood. Thank you, David Todd. Thank you, Aaron Alfonso. Thank you, Amber Aitken. Thank you, Laura Anderson. Thank you, Holly Asquith. Thank you, Isra Azam. Thank you, Viva Azzolini. Thank you, Alison Page. Thank you, Catherine Bell. Thank you, Camilla Billing. Thank you, Emma Bowen. Thank you, Saren Brar. Thank you, Renan Bringer. Thank you, Abigail Bristow. Thank you, Gareth Brock. Thank you, Jack Burke. Thank you, Abby Kane. Thank you, Jack Coleman. Thank you, Bryn Davies. Thank you, Dylan Davies. Thank you, Ellie Davis. Thank you, Yasmina Dayak Risak. Thank you, Marion Deprez. Thank you, Luigi Espindola. Thank you, Lauren Evans. Thank you, Sarah Evans. Thank you, Mulcha Fabi. Thank you, Issa G. Ferrer. Thank you, Sonia Field. Thank you, Marjon Fitzsimmons. Thank you, Georgia Fletcher. Thank you, Polly Fletcher. Thank you, Ewan Polis. Thank you, Gurvinder Gill. Thank you, Gret Gilwa. Thank you, Emily Glaze. Thank you, Poppy Griffiths. Thank you, Aramis Guerrero. Thank you, Sally Hemsworth. Thank you, Dylan Henriksen. Thank you, Robin Hepwood. Thank you, Lou Heritage. Thank you, Philip Hewitt. Thank you, John Hill. Thank you, Jack Hornet. Thank you, Sarah Jones. Thank you, Jimmy Keeping. Thank you, Ian Kinsler. Thank you, Mary Knupfer. Thank you, Mary Korf. Thank you, Gina Leon Flores. Thank you, Jenny Martin. Thank you, Hannah McCartney. Thank you, Erica McCormick. Thank you, Jay McNaught. Thank you, Jimmy McSparron. Thank you, Hannah Mills. Thank you, Elvira Morales. Thank you, Sophie Morrissey. Thank you, Christopher Mullen. Thank you, George Mundy. Thank you, Becky Nash. Thank you, Emily O'Shea. Thank you, Gabrielle Oliver. Thank you, Rudy Owings. Thank you, Joanna Price. Thank you, Tamina Rahman. Thank you, Jessica Emily Smith. Thank you, Sally Stebler. Thank you, Phil Stott. Thank you, Jonathan Stern. Thank you, Trudy Stotor. Thank you, David Thackeray. Thank you, Leandre Thomas. Thank you, Naomi Joy Todd. Thank you, Michael Trobiani. Thank you, Sarah Turner. Thank you, Blanca Valdez. Thank you, James Vasalovsky. Thank you, Zara Wilson. Thank you, Billy Wiz. Thank you, Matthew Wood. Thank you, Yuri Spheres. Thank you, Freddie Lovett. Thank you, Pixie Shea. Thank you, Catherine Tidy. Thank you, C. Briggs. Thank you, George Graham. Thank you, Jenny Spader. Thank you, Miles Ahmed. Thank you, Veronica Burnett. Thank you, Nina Javalat. Thank you, Jamie Johnstone. Thank you, Carola Lago. Thank you, Clara Salas. Thank you, Sophie Scott. Thank you, Ian White. Thank you, Luke Alkins. Thank you, Patricia Rodriguez. Thank you, Stephanie Silva. Thank you, Karen Shaw. Thank you, Hester Walton. Thank you, Bob Bema. Thank you, Francesca Budd. Thank you, Bethany Cornelius. Thank you, Sophia Ferreira. Thank you, Alice O'Neill. Thank you, Sophia Barron. Thank you, Nay Chaudnay. Thank you, Abby Clayton. Thank you, Hannah DiMardia. Thank you, Laurelyn Howie. Thank you, Wesley Maddox. Thank you, Nadeja Silvana Sim. Thank you, Anushka Ayaru. Thank you, Boy Cole. Thank you, Joe Cork. Thank you, Sean Hind. Thank you, Aldi Leiper. Damn. Thank you, Matthew Leons. Thank you, Obi Okeke. Thank you, R.T. Shah. Thank you, James Weller. Thank you, Diana Scrivener. Thank you, Derek Arnold. Thank you, Assad Ayaz. Thank you. That name sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, I think it's... Okay, anyways. Thank you, Leland Shee. Thank you, Doug Shang. Thank you, Aidan Cook. Thank you, Kevin Cornwall. Thank you, Leah Cross. Thank you, Alice DeLambert. Thank you, Olga Drobik. Thank you, Barbara Fadden. Thank you, Damien Farrell. Thank you, Nick Harbour. Thank you, Claire Roy Harvey. Thank you, James Henry Thomas. Thank you, Pablo Hidalgo. Thank you, Megan Johnston. Thank you, Sylvia Kubasa. Thank you, Ray Lim. Thank you, Charlotte Louise. Thank you, Dailu Mia. Thank you, Joe Morley. Thank you, Jake Pogson. Thank you, Colin Perez. Thank you, Michael Rolfe. Thank you, Lynn Robertson Bruce. Thank you, Ali Sarabani. Thank you, Benedict Stewardson. Thank you, Sean Swan. Thank you, Marina Tandal. Thank you, Chris Waite. Thank you, Rob Ward. Thank you, Letitia Wilson. Thank you, Ian Yates. Thank you, Temi Edagbeson. Thank you, TJ Falls. Thank you, John Gomez. Thank you, Mark Jocelyn. Thank you, Adam Kaluski. Thank you, Natasha Leach. Thank you, Taya Leon. Thank you, Duncan Parks. Thank you, Darren Paulson. Thank you, Tommy Shackles. Thank you, John Whitbay. Thank you, Gloria Zanet. Thank you, Brian R. Jackson. Thank you, Jennifer Saunders. Thank you, Kerry Jovetic. Thank you, Dave Chapman. Thank you, Kevin Rutherford. Thank you, Eviana Bentley. Thank you, Rachel Butera. Thank you, James Cross. Thank you, Tom Perkins. Thank you, Amanda Webster. Thank you, Jessica Duncan. Thank you, Wayne Ferguson. And thank you, Christine Lies or Lies. Oh, damn, that was 218. On page 218 is where the names end. Holy crap, wow. That is that was an interesting use of my time. But all these people, thank you to all these people from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the entire Andor fan base, or the entire Star Wars franchise actually, because their work will have a ripple effect all throughout Star Wars. So this was really intense and insane. Probably the craziest thing I've ever done, and I hope that I hope it's not going to be something that I do ever again. I don't think I will do this again unless I feel moved I would only do this again if I feel really moved by a piece of media, but this was intense. This was really interesting. With the little list that I put for myself, I couldn't find anyone with my name. Well, I found like 5 Garys, actually 6, but the names were not spelled correctly, so they don't count. I found 1, 2, 3, 4 people's names, excluding me, so that says something. And the most common was Carl, aka Johannes, so that's fun. But anyways, that's it for this video, and you don't have to watch it at all. I don't think anyone's gonna watch it, but it's just a way for me to get it out of my system, you know, this Andor excitement that I've got. So I just had to get it out of my system, and I feel like this was my way of getting it out of my system, as opposed to doing a video essay, which, if that's what you're expecting, you can find plenty of those on YouTube already. So yeah, if you watched till the end, thank you. If you skipped to the end, there are some fun Easter eggs that you missed. Thanks for watching, and I'm never going to do something like this again.